There we go. Well, good morning, everyone, to the March 16th County Commissioners meeting. We have the call here to bring the session in order. Would you please rise with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge
allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and
to
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any public comment at this time?
No.
Okay, we have none. Then, has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda for today? I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda unless there is a need to discuss it.
I move to accept the agenda as printed.
I'll
We have a
second.
motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have a motion to accept the agenda for today. Any discussion? Corey, would you take roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion carries. All right. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at the board meeting minutes from March 2nd? I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes from March 2nd.
I'll move the minutes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, is there any discussion on the minutes from March 2nd? Any discussion? Hearing none. Corey, would you please take roll?
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion carries. Board minutes approved. All right. Now we have a nice little part of our agenda here. We have some Employee of the Year Service Awards. I'm going to turn it over to Beth at this time. Beth, would you please
Sure.
take care of this item?
Sure. Our first one is Christine Burkholz, Social Service Case Aide, 5 years. For your service. The next one is Amy Brewston, Social Worker, 15 years. Is Dina here?
Caught up with some other work.
Okay. How about Dina? Is she here? And the next one is Dina Carlson. She is also a social worker, 20 years. So thank you all for your service. We much appreciate it.
And I think I saw Paul there. Paul, will you please see that if these folks were not in the boardroom, that they received their certificates?
I sure will, thank you.
Thank you very much. And please acknowledge their years of service for us. Okay. Thank you, Beth. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
Number 3, we're moving down. We have the Feedlot Inspector. Is Ann there?
Yes, I am. I'm Ann
Hi,
Stein.
Ann. We'll turn it over to you.
I'm Ann Steinhaus. I'm the Assistant Meeker County Feedlot Inspector, and I am here today to request a signature for my 2020 County Feedlot Annual Report. It's basically my grade, or the county's grade, on my work. MPCA is great for county's work done by mostly me, for 2020. It reflects how we get our annual match from the county. If we don't score a high enough percentage, then they can take that away. We got 100% this year.
Good.
Good job.
13 of 13 points. We also had 18.25 performance credits. That gets us bonus dollars. I don't know the value of a performance credit. MPCA will know at the end of the 12 reporting period.
And it said in number 32 there that you received 26 feedlots or feedlot sites that received a compliance. So some of those you didn't do in person this year, did you? Or
Everything in person.
oh, you did. Okay.
The only thing that we didn't do that we did differently was starting in the last week in October, I did not have a planning commission member come out with me, simply because we usually rode in the same truck, and that accounted for probably about 15 inspections. A chunk of, or a large number of those went in at 26. Any of the large feedlots, SDS and NDPES permitted feedlots, that I inspect as a portion of our CUP regulations, for the county do not count towards this.
Oh, okay.
So anything over 999 animal units, I inspect per the county CUP, but not to 70/20.
I have been with Ann on a couple of inspections when I was on the planning commission. She does a great job when she's out there communicating with the people and inspecting what needs to be inspected.
Yeah. I'm kind of an old farm kid, so I enjoy my job.
I'm just curious, on an average inspection, how much time is spent? I suppose it depends on
Depends on the site.
the lot.
Yeah, and biosecurity is also an issue. So like, any of the poultry inspections are relatively short. There's not a lot to see. They don't even really like us getting over the truck.
Right, I know,
From the avian
Right.
influenza issues. Anything that's total confinement is a fairly short inspection on site. Now, I have to do off-site inspections. I shouldn't say off-site, but I have to do paperwork inspections, because anything of 99 animal units, actually 100 animal units or greater, is required to have some form of manure management record. And so those I'll often do off-site, and or sometimes, especially, you can see in this plan, a certain number of sites that I visit as part of my work plan, or sites that have never been inspected
Okay.
before. And oftentimes those particular producers aren't aware of how to do manure management plan, so I'll actually take their records and work with them and help
Sure.
them figure out how to do that. This year I was actually doing the plans for them because our office is shut. In previous years, I've had them come in and sat down and I've worked with them,
Sure.
kinda taught them how to do it.
I've had good follow-up from people that you've been out to inspect to producers, so they're appreciative of the way you handle things and even problems they've had, so. You do a good job communicating with producers. I just wanna share that, so appreciate that.
Appreciate that.
So are you looking for an approval of this or a motion to approve this report, or what's the?
I need a signature from the board, so I don't know.
In the past, we've done a motion to approve and then I get a signature.
Okay.
I would entertain a motion.
I will make that motion, Commissioner Bredson. Madam Chair,
Do I
I should
hear a
have said.
second? Do I hear a second to approve the feedlot report?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the annual feedlot report for Ann. Corey, would you, or is there any discussion? Any further questions or discussion for Ann? Hearing none. Corey, would you take the roll, please?
Sure, Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Oberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Ann.
And
Thanks,
I'll
Ann.
get that signature for you.
Next on our agenda, I see we have Barbara. Is Barbara with us?
That would be me.
There she is. Thank you.
Commissioner, can you hear me for sure?
I'm good.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for this opportunity to come to you virtually because unlike Julie here, we are not in 82-degree weather. We're in ice and snow. So it saved us a lot of slippery miles there. My name is Barb Chake and I'm the CEO for Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services. We serve 11 counties in the central part of our state, including Meeker County. Well, year 2020 marks our 37th year as partners in workforce development, a partnership that started in 1984, and we're very proud of that partnership. And thank you so much for providing us a wonderful site. It's right in Litchfield, and we are partnering with Health and Human Services in the same building, and so we are very grateful for that. The next slide, I don't know if our slides are on here or not.
I'm pulling it up right now, 1 second.
Okay, so do we have our slides? Did somebody send those to you, Andrew?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, just
so
1 second.
the next one is really about our agenda. And so I'm gonna wait should I wait so that they're
Just
on
1
there?
second.
Or should I keep on
Second,
going?
Ann. Second.
There we go. Perfect. Our agenda is really twofold. It is my job, under law to bring you the annual fiscal audit. And our independent auditor is Clifton Larson and Allen. And the next thing is to make sure that I bring you the annual program performance report. Now that is being presented to you online, so you can go to cmjts.org to find that. The third thing that isn't there is that there's a schedule of insurances that we also bring to you, and that is in your packets. And the Joint Powers Board has required us to have a $2 million package. And that's, if you look at the directors and officers liability, that's what covers Commissioner Steve Schmidt. So those are the things that you're gonna find in the schedule of insurances. The second part of our agenda is really the most important, and that is my staff, my very qualified staff presenting to you and a focus on programs and services right here in Meeker County. So next slide, there are two new commissioners that I wanted to introduce you to. And that would be Candy Ohio County Commissioner Steve Garner, who takes Harlan Matson's place, who retired, and McLeod County Commissioner Nathan Schmalz, who took Ron Chmaski's place, who retired. And then this leaves the Commissioner, Meeker County Commissioner Steve Schmidt as no longer the newbie, one of the newbies. But I wanted to pause here for a moment because I wanted to say a few things about Steve Schmidt. One thing I noted about Steve is that he's a very dedicated leader, that he always shows up, and he shows up for extra things. He shows up for trainings. He has been at the Minnesota Association of Workforce Boards summer meetings. He shows up for those. They're usually in Duluth, Minnesota. And I know that once we get money and we can get back to Washington, D.C., that I don't think he's gonna hesitate to get on a plane with me to go to Washington, D.C., to meet with 50 states and U.S. territories and all of the commissioners from all of those areas so that we can go to the Hill together and meet with Congress. So that's the kind of dedicated leader he is, and so I've really appreciated his leadership, so, thank you, Steve, Commissioner Schmidt. So, next slide is other individuals that you already know, so I'm gonna just kind of quickly go to the next slide. Those that you've already been introduced to. This is actually the map that shows where we're located. If you take a look at that central greenish area, that's our 11 county area. And there's 16 local workforce development areas, and I am the director over local workforce development area 5. And 5 and 17 come together, and now we're region 3, so there's actually 13 counties. On the right-hand side, you're gonna see that Litchfield is one of our career forward sites, and we're very honored to have that partnership there and have a site in Litchfield. And then if you look at the specialized centers, the red, our burgundy are the Malacca, North Branch, Pine City, and Sandstone, and those are brand new sites that started in 2020. And we were gonna have big open houses, and then COVID ended up coming, so we pushed those out for those openings, and I'm certain that Dina may talk to you a little bit more about that. So, next slide is this is really our annual report, but on this slide, you're gonna see that we had a virtual job fair, and it was the very first day of the blizzard of 2020. And all of these individuals still came out, they came up, we had a line, and you see all those that green bag on the left. Employers from all over brought all kinds of information who needed employees right away, and people got jobs. So it worked out to be a good annual, and we've had some since that time, but this is the one that ended up on the annual report. So our next slide is the opportunity for my very qualified staff to introduce themselves and take charge, and at the end, we'll answer your questions. So go ahead, Tricia.
All right. Good morning. My name is Tricia Bigwit. I am the Director of Finance and Economic Development with CMJTS, and I'm here to bring to you our annual fiscal audit this year. Clifton Larson Allen is our audit firm. They were in the last week in October. They did their full review virtually this year. They still looked at program files. They looked at over 105 grants for us. Made sure that all of our accounts payable transactions, our payroll transactions, they looked at a full detailed report of over 4,000 pages worth of GL detail and followed those through, made sure that they were tying out. On the next slide, you can see the summary of our report, which shows that there was no errors of inconsistency. There was no times that they needed to make any adjustments to our financial statements. We prepare them before they come in to review them so that they can just make sure that they're providing us an unmodified opinion. So that kind of guarantees that when Commissioner Schmitz is in our office, what he's seeing is accurate. Doesn't need to wait till the end of the year till the auditors come in and review and approve and make adjustments. What he's seeing on a quarterly basis is accurate. That's timely information. They identify no material weaknesses in any of our policies or procedures or any of our transactions. So we're a low-risk auditee, and we're proud of this report, and we hope to continue to provide good financial services to you. And that's all I have. Hand it off to Dina, I think is next.
Perfect. Good morning. So I'm Dina Warnes, and I am Program Manager over several programs at CMJTS, including our MFIP program, our Diversionary Work Program, SNAP Employment and Training, as well as our WIOA Adult programs and our state and federal dislocated worker programs. And I'll talk first about MFIP. I will say MFIP has been very interesting for our staff over the last 12 months. With the pandemic and the peacetime emergency in place, it's really changed the way that we've had to case manage our participants. And it looks like yesterday that peacetime emergency was extended for at least one more month by Governor Walz. So we're carried on until at least April 14th. And what that means for our staff with MFIP is that the rules change a little bit. So when we have an MFIP participant, they're typically receiving both cash and food assistance. There are still time limits in place, so an individual typically has 60 months in a lifetime that they can receive benefits. At the end of that 60 months, we do complete a thorough assessment with that individual, and we work in tandem with our financial workers to identify if there are any extension categories they might be eligible for to take them into what we refer to as post-60. And along with that, the MFIP program then is designed to expect, reward, and support work. And what we mean by that, first and foremost, the MFIP program expects work. When an individual applies for benefits and they're found eligible, they are referred to our employment specialists. And in Meeker County, that is Erica Kruger. When that individual gets referred to Erica, she schedules time to meet with them. She completes an assessment. She determines what's appropriate for the individual. And they complete an employment plan together, including specific activities that that individual needs to participate in. So the expects work component of MFIP is that the individual follow through with those expectations, follow through with those activities in order to avoid sanctions and to remain eligible for MFIP. Right now, with that peacetime emergency in place, essentially, the sanction component is on pause. So although we still work with our clients and we encourage them to seek work and participate in activities that remove those barriers and challenges, there is not a financial sanction if they do not follow through. And that will continue for as long as that peacetime emergency is in place. And then we talk about MFIP rewarding work. And the main way that MFIP rewards work is to allow families what's referred to as a disregard. Essentially, the income that they're earning on a monthly basis, a large portion of it is disregarded from the household so that it does not count against their MFIP grant. The reason why that's in place is to essentially create employment incentives for an individual so that they can go to work and they won't be immediately cut off benefits. The focus of
Whoops.
Can you hold on for 1 second?
This is the good part too.
I think it's
building
my
suspense.
connection. I don't know why I keep losing my connection. Sorry, guys.
And she can't hear us either, obviously.
Can she see us?
Probably not when she's speaking.
What she's speaking about is really the boots on the ground kind of stuff, so hopefully you can hear what they do really to serve folks. Click on their name, Andrew, and get.
We can't hear Julie either.
Julie's learning.
What?
Julie can hear him, so she's learning about it.
Oh, she can hear them, huh? This is interesting.
So they hear each other, I would assume, and
They're
they.
hearing each other.
No, we're not hearing them.
Can you text them and tell them we can't hear you?
Do you wanna use my Wi-Fi?
That's weird. Yeah, what's your,
Can they see us?
Yeah, well, I don't know what, hold on.
Cause I could hold up a sign, we can't hear you.
it says it's here, but it says there's no internet.
There you go.
I am now the host of this.
Thinking of things to get me back.
Can I remind?
Our mics are on, but.
Sorry, guys, this is.
That reminds me of one of our farm meetings. People talking and no one listening.
So you kinda,
Just making the meeting longer.
this is the last 10 minutes of my life?
Exactly.
Maybe.
So, is this what you pay your cooks?
Well, probably not, well, I have to figure it out by the hour, I guess. What was that figure?
27.7.
I would like to.
27.7.
Paul, who's over in CM, who took Eric Day's spot?
Who took,
Eric's spot?
I don't know.
Yeah, I got
Probably after.
All right, let's see here.
stop in there.
The hour.
Oh, I've seen.
Once we do a few benefits. Do health.
Oh, you do benefits over there.
Well, we do, vacation.
When they get through theirs, I just have kind of a local financial picture with them.
Contribute up to 3%. And then we
No, Eric
give
did
them
it.
a
He's
stipend toward him.
really good on MNC.
Oh, sure.
He was needed there. I mean, that's
Oh, yeah.
Is that pretty part?
without saying too much, that's a big step up
Part-timers
there.
can accumulate the
Well,
IRA
you
after
know,
some
okay.
way.
Our RTCC forward as well, and now there's someone else taking over, but he's still.
But
kind of
nobody's coming
overseeing
to
our-
apply,
the regional transportation.
Yep.
so obviously,
His leadership really is there.
Yeah.
You know, and his results
they're
are
not gonna, I
actually.
don't.
I'm gonna call Mary up. I can't get connected.
I
Yeah.
really like it.
Yeah.
This was
Am I?
a great report. Cover to cover.
I was really glad
Because I
when
like
you
it so much.
Oh, now we can hear you.
Now we're hearing you.
We can hear you
Thank
again.
you, Barbara. Thank you. I believe we're all back together. I can see the boardroom, I can hear you. And now we can see our slideshow again. Excellent.
Perfect, so we will actually move forward to the next slide, that's where I will pick up. Thank you. So with our employment specialist, some of the services that they provide to our MFIP participants, first and foremost, it's one-on-one employment specialist counseling. Our services are individualized. We understand that our participants come to us at all different levels of readiness. And so it's our job, first and foremost, to complete an assessment with every individual. And we're completing assessments as long as they're enrolled with us. We're consistently doing either formal or informal assessment, data gathering, identifying strengths that they come to the table with, helping them address issues through solution-focused responses. We use a lot of referral to either our partner agencies, being adult basic education, vocational rehab services, and we also use community services or community-based organizations to address any potential challenges that might come up for our participant. When we complete assessments, we're often looking at their skills, their strengths, their aptitudes, and we can do that. We do have a career assessment we facilitate with individuals who want a little bit of extra help identifying what's the best career pathway for them. And we refer to that as our CAPS, COPS, COPES assessment. And then again, we're also doing a lot of informal assessments, asking a lot of questions, helping them focus on the best path to employment. Along with that, we often do job readiness skills training. A lot of times individuals come to us and they're not really sure how to even start looking for work. And if they have been employed and they need a little extra help to figure out what that next job looks like, we can help them to complete applications. We do a lot of resume writing with individuals to make sure they have the tools they need to be successful in that job search. We do mock interviewing quite often to ensure that they know how to respond to some of those tough interviewing questions. And we also help them with that letter writing. We can connect them with network workshops and job placement assistance, which we connect with our business service coordinators here at CMJTS, and I'm sure Leslie will talk a little bit more about that. All right, so then we do have our SNAP employment and training program as well. And with SNAP employment and training, our focus is on serving the most in need. With SNAP in the state of Minnesota, SNAP employment training is not mandated. So when an individual is receiving benefits, we encourage them to enroll with our programming so that we can help them focus on a job search, identify their skills, and help move them towards placement. But in Minnesota, it is a voluntary program. However, SNAP individuals, there are individuals time limited, and those are what we refer to as ABOD. ABOD is an acronym that stands for Able-Bodied Adults Without Dependents. And if they are an ABOD, they are time limited, which means they are only eligible for food support benefits for 3 months in a 36-month time frame, which is a very short period of time. By the time they receive their benefits and get a referral to the employment specialist, meet with us, get enrolled, we've probably already lost 1 month. So we move really quick with our SNAP participants. We do a lot of recruitment, a lot of outreach, and this program nationwide struggles to engage SNAP participants. So we're always implementing creative ways to try and get our individuals through the door. CMJTS does receive a SNAP 50/50 grant in addition to our county 100% provider grant. So with our SNAP 50/50 grant, we receive additional funds through DHS. Those funds allow us to bill back any non-federal program dollars expended on a SNAP participant at 50% the rate. So for every dollar we spend on a SNAP participant where we're using non-federal funds, we can receive back 50 cents. We then put that 50 cents into an account to continue supporting and encouraging our SNAP participants to complete vocational training, short-term training, on-the-job training to help them gain the skills they need to go back to work quickly. Our adult and dislocated worker programs, I'm gonna blend these two together. Essentially, with our adult and dislocated worker programs, the services we provide are pretty much the same. The difference is in the pot of money that funds and supports the individual. So we do have two different criteria that we can look at for helping an individual be eligible for our programs. First, it's the WIOA, or the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, adult programming. And with WIOA adult, we can serve an individual who's at least 18 years of age, has registered for selective service if they were required to, and if they are unemployed or underemployed. And then our board, our directors, has defined what underemployed means. We have a priority of service for our WIOA adult participants as well, and we focus on those who are low basic skills, meaning their math or reading is below that 9th grade level, or those who are low income or who have received some form of public assistance in the last 6 months. 75% of our adult program enrollments must meet one of those two criteria in order to be eligible for services. The purpose for that criteria is to ensure those most in need in the state of Minnesota are getting served and getting the help they need. Our WIOA, as well as our state dislocated worker program, the criteria is a little different. With our eligibility criteria there, essentially, if they have lost a job due to no fault of their own, they are eligible to receive services. And what we mean by no fault of their own, we let unemployment insurance define that for us. Somebody could potentially be terminated from a job and still be found that they lost their job due to no fault of their own if they're eligible for unemployment. So as long as they're eligible for, exhausted, or receiving unemployment, we can deem them eligible for that dislocated worker program. And then the services we provide to individuals is individualized, however, it's categorized. So I can talk about that briefly. We offer career planning and counseling, and some of the ways that we do that, when an individual comes to us, the first thing we're going to do is complete some assessments to identify their starting point. What is their work history? What is their educational history? We do those COPS assessments again to identify their skills, their abilities, and their values so that we can help identify a good career pathway for them. And we're always focused on what we refer to as in-demand occupations. There needs to be a demand, or we're not going to support it because we want to make sure we're good stewards of our funding and that we're helping an individual to secure the skills they need to be successful in a job search. We can provide training services as well. If we identify through that assessment process that an individual might need some additional skills in order to be competitive in the market, we can help them with training. Training can be defined several different ways depending upon the needs of that individual. It might be a 2-year program in accounting. It might be a 4-week program for a certified nursing assistant. It may also be on-the-job training where we're paying an employer a portion of that individual's wage to teach them on the job. So we have a variety of training services available, and as long as that individual is eligible and enrolled in our programming, we're paying that tuition for the individual to ensure that they're successful. Job search assistance also includes a full gamut of services. We're doing everything from resume writing, mock interviewing, helping them identify labor market information in their area, all of the tools necessary to be successful in that job search. We offer workshops through our career force locations that we encourage people to attend, and we also help with all kinds of resume critique, helping move the individual through their job search successfully. Finally, we do offer some support services. So through all of our programming, I've talked about MFIT, SNAP, adult and dislocated worker, all programs, we do have some funds available. They are limited per individual, but support services can help address those immediate challenges that get in the way of success. An example might be someone's driving for their next interview and a tire blows out on the side of the road. If they have limited or no income, fixing that tire can be costly. So we have support services available to cover the cost to ensure that it's not a concern or an added stress for the individual while they're already under a lot of stress and pressure. Any questions for me?
I have some. I worked for Ridgewater College for 30 years. Where is your office located? Are you a part of that career workforce center, like at Ridgewater's campus in Hutchinson, or where are you folks located?
Yeah, we're actually located in both Bridgewater College campuses, both in Hutchinson and in Wilmer. And in Hutchinson, we're on the back side, you have to go all the way past the college, and then we're on the back side, we have our own location, the career force location there.
And you provide scholarships and tuition, excellent. You have that connection with the college, very good.
Yeah, we work very closely with our college partners.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Well, good morning. I'm Diana Ristamaki, and I'm the Youth Program Manager for Central Minnesota Jobs and Training. And I know our time is coming up, so I'm going to kind of breeze through my part and just focus on maybe some of the differences between youth programs and the adult services that Dina has talked extensively about already. So for youth programs, we have about 8 different funding streams that we serve youth out of for, so the youth has to come to us for some type of eligible criteria in order for us to serve them under that. So on the next slide, you have just an actual breakdown of our youth program chart of eligibility. It's easier for me just to provide that to you, since each program has some type of criteria in order for youth to service. But overall, the youth that come to our doors generally need just some type of additional assistance in order to complete their educational program, whether that's high school, their GED, post-secondary, and or to secure or hold employment. The youth that we serve are ages 14 to 24, and the state and federal guidelines deem them at risk for us to serve in the following categories. Those would be youth that are school dropouts or potential school dropouts. Majority of our youth that come to our doors are low-income families, youth who have a disability, homeless youth, youth who are in the foster care system or aging out of the foster care system, pregnant or parenting youth, basic skills deficient, English language learners, and potential school dropouts. So our services that we generally provide, and I'll just kind of briefly go over the ones that aren't touched upon, is the biggest part of our youth programs is work-based learning. So our youth will come to us, generally they don't have a work history, or maybe they have a break in their work history, and they just need that on-the-job skills training. So we place them at sites, employer sites, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit, for the employer of record for those individuals. And then that site or that employer will take that youth on and help them gain work experience skills. For example, right now we have a youth that's in custom products in Litchfield. And so they were in the warehouse learning some different types of skills in order to build that resume and or to become a little bit more competitive within the job history. Occupational skills training. This is kind of some of those trainings that Dina talked about. You know, we're looking at tuition assistance for their career training programs. Those are looking at labor market information, helping that youth look at colleges, how do you apply for college, how do you look at a syllabus, looking at the high demand wages for those certain occupations and that type of stuff. Sorry, I'm just getting all of a sudden nervous and I'm sorry about that. So that post
Very well.
I'm sorry, I just having that freak moment all of a sudden. Normally, I don't do that, I apologize.
Oh, you're
So-
coming across just great, so, yeah.
Post-secondary preparation, looking at those different career assessments with that youth, labor market information, that type of stuff. Leadership development, that's an extremely important part of the youth programs on what we do. So a lot of times, maybe they're out on a job site and we actually have them be the lead person. So they're gaining some of those leadership development skills. Maybe they're on a service learning project and they're teaching other youth developmental skills, those types of things. So Dropout Prevention and Recovery Services, one of our major partners that we have in the youth programs is our ABE and our GED partners. And we work with them on youth who have dropped out of school and they want to get back into their GED programming. One of the things that CMJTS is allowed to do is we can pay youth a $10 an hour stipend to attend their GED classes. This has been pretty successful because it really helps that youth be a little bit more motivated in order to complete that GED. Dina had talked about some of the support services, so the youth programs has the same amount of things. If there's any type of barrier that is the youth is facing in order to not participate in their educational training program, then we can provide some of those support services. One of the main thing that youth program pays for is our driver's education. That is one of the bigger barriers to youth in our rural areas. Financial literacy, we incorporate financial literacy with all of our youth programs. So they get some type of training with their ESs for every youth that walks through our door, just because it's important in every aspect in their job or educational programming. So that's really looking at how do they budget? Have they needed to open up a checking account? How do they money manage? How do they do a household budget, those types of things, saving for college, just the general career success skills for financial literacy. And then our follow-up services for a lot of our youth programs, we have to follow them for a full year once they are exited from our program. And that's truly just to make sure that they are being successful within that work or educational environment. And then if they aren't, it's allowing us to kind of get them back on track, giving them the successful tools that they need in order to continue on. So our next part, and I'll just briefly talk about this, I had talked about eligibility programs, and that was just because those youth have to have an eligibility criteria in order for us to serve them. For some of our programs, we are allowed to set aside funds in order to serve youth that do not meet eligibility criteria for our programs. So this will allow us to kind of go into schools and provide services on an individual or group basis to the general school population. So we will go into some of maybe the career counselors, career sessions, those types of things to just help enhance some of the programming that they have there. And you can go to the next slide. And some of those services are just allowing us to come in and give some career exploration, maybe some career assessments, resume prep, job search assistance, some post-secondary preparation, connecting them with employers, maybe for some job shadowing opportunities, tours of our local career force centers, tours of colleges, those types of things. Sorry, I ran through that pretty darn fast. Any questions about that? Youth programs? And this slide was supposed to be hidden, so we're good. We can just move on to the next one.
Good morning, everybody. I know we are, well over our time, so I'm not sure, do you want me just to quick run through my stuff, or I can come back at another time too as well, so.
Well, we're up and running and the slideshow is rolling along and so if you'd like to share with us quickly, that would be great.
Well, I am Leslie Batoiz. I oversee our business services, which is what I want to bring to you today. So we have 3 business service coordinators across our 11 counties. Bridgette Paulson is the business service coordinator for Meeker County. She took over right after COVID hit, so she has been trying to get to know employers who are our customers through business services in this challenging environment, not being able to go in, and she is very much a people person and wants to knock on the doors and meet them in person. But she has done amazing. She still helps businesses connect with qualified workers. She does a lot of referrals. She helps them connect to different job banks and access those to find qualified workers. She also connects the employers with training that they are able to receive. As far as funding, I'll cover OJT. She helps the youth team find those work experience sites. We provide incumbent worker training, helping connect them with registered and youth apprenticeships. And then we also offer some free resources as far as business consultations, HR groups, and networking groups. And you can move to the next slide. So on-the-job training is one of the key components and services we offer to employers. We really try to connect them. Of course, the employee needs to be eligible for some of the programs that Diana and Dina talked about so that we have the funding stream. But then when they are eligible, we are able to reimburse the employer up to 50% of the wage during that training time. So it allows them to pick the best candidate that may not have all of the skills coming to them, so we can then reimburse them during that training time where the employer may have to spend some additional time. We recently completed an OJT at, and I know I'm not sure I'm gonna say this right, but Becala Engineering LLC in Dassel. They did an OJT for a machine build engineer. It actually just got a quote from the employer today. Owner Gordon said that truthfully, we needed more resources at the same time revenue was dropping. We now have a full-time employee ready to help us tackle the next projects. Thanks again, Audit. So it's nice to get those positives and that we are making a difference with those employers and helping them grow their companies. And we'll move on to the next slide. The other program that we really like to promote is our Incumbent Worker Training Program. This is business driven. It's truly to help upskill their current employees. Ideally, then they move up and get promoted within the company, and then it opens up the door for those entry-level positions again. It helps increase the company viability. It expands their reach depending on what they're upskilling their employees. We have had several incumbent worker projects in Meeker County. IRD Glass, Elka Mechanical, Custom Products, Litchfield Building Center, and Spectralytics. So it is awesome that those companies are taking advantage of the funds and the opportunity to upskill their current employees. And then next slide. This, Barb had mentioned, it is on the cover of our annual report. We hosted a drive-through job fair event in our Monticello location. Of course, it's been winter, and outside my door, it looks like winter again. So we're just really hopeful that we can get back to in-person job fair events soon. We did offer this drive-through, but then we do monthly virtual hiring events. It's just harder to connect with the employees or the job seekers in a virtual format. It's been successful, but not at the same level as those in-person events. And I think that wraps it up for me. any questions. We appreciate your time this morning. Again, if you have any more questions about business services, I would be happy to come back, or Bridgette, I'm sure, would love to come and share all that she does with you.
Okay, well, thank you for that report. Are you seeking action from the board today, or?
Not today, thank you. We're just here to make sure that you have all of the information that you need. Thank you.
Very nice. Any questions or comments from the board for these folks?
Julie, I have a question, or a comment, actually, and Barb and your staff. I just wanted to sit in on the CMJTS board for the last, going on third year now. One thing that I like about what CMJTS does, and I was just kind of jotting some things as the presentations are going on, is I think that you deal with empathy, but you don't promote apathy, and you work on parity, but you don't promote pity. And you try and move the worker who's probably fell on some disadvantages from into long-term successful situations through training and education. If somebody comes to you that doesn't want to work, there's not much that CMJTS can do for them. But if they're willing to put in some effort, there's a lot of tools that CMJTS offers that put them in productive situations to be successful for the long term, which keeps people out of social service situations and sheriff's offices. So we appreciate all you do.
Thank you so much. I have to tell you that that was very impressive, and a lot of our staff have been people that didn't have jobs before and are now working with us. So they're very compassionate about what it's like to not have a job for a while. So thank you, appreciate it. Thank you very much for allowing us to be here today.
Commissioner.
Well done.
Commissioner
Well
Brinson.
done.
Have a
Paul
great week.
Bukovich, Meeker County
And
Social Services.
any other comments?
Hold on, Barb and Julie. Paul wants to have a
Yes,
little comment.
just to add to the comments, we share a very strong relationship with Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services. As you've heard their report, you can assume that many of the folks that they're serving, we also serve. Commissioner Schmitz has also indicated the value of employment really is a plank of a person's recovery to deal with the social situations that cause them to enter our environment. Just to provide a little bit of a financial piece of where social services interacts with Central Minnesota Jobs and Trainings, we have approximately a $203,000 budget that is a pass-through funds from federal and state dollars that goes through Central Minnesota Jobs and Training. A couple weeks ago, you heard me talk about our SNAP EBT contract with the joint counties, and so there was about $23,000 there. Central Minnesota Jobs and Training is able to glean an administrative allowance out of that, $203,000 approximately. And Social Services also has an administrative recoupment from that of approximately $37,000. So I just wanted to give you some of that local financial information. Again, we're very pleased with Central Minnesota Jobs and Training, and we look forward to having a long relationship with them and to see where we go after this COVID time. So thank you so much for Central Minnesota Jobs and Training for providing their report today and allowing me to just give a little bit of an update as well.
Madam Chair, I totally agree. There's nothing that we appreciate more is when we can see somebody get that job and get all their confidence back and start, I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't want to be able to pay pay for their car, pay for their insurance, or pay for their lights and electricity and feed their kids. So giving them and helping them find a job or schooling has been, it's a blessing in many ways. So we appreciate all the things that in the partnership with Meeker County. It's been a good 37 years. So thank you.
Wonderful, and hopefully many, many more, and many more wonderful success stories.
Yeah.
So continue those good relationships, like with Ridgewater. I would like to get a plug in for those guys.
Oh, yes.
Wonderful. Well, any other comments or questions from the board at this point? Hearing none, and if there is no additional, we don't need to take care of any business. We appreciate the information and the presentations, and thank you. And I think as we move down the agenda, we have Brian is next.
Good morning, Brian Cruz, County Sheriff. So I just have one item before you this morning, and that is, it's a speed enforcement grant through the Department of Public Safety. It's a $3,200 grant with a local match of $640. So just asking for approval on that grant.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2021-13.
I'll second,
Do I
Madam.
hear a second? Okay, thank you, Steve. We have a motion to approve a resolution for a grant. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? If none, Corey, would you take roll, please?
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion carries. Anything
Record
else,
time.
Brian?
Brian? Brian, I got just one question. It's in the payables and forgive me because I didn't get it to you yesterday, but, just there's some active shooter equipment. Are you aware what we got or
So the latest, so this is part of what we started buying last year.
yeah,
The
I knew we
latest
were.
thing I believe that would be the bill for the face shields or the
Okay.
helmets.
Okay.
Those are the last two things we got.
Okay, I was just curious for it. I knew we had approved some stuff last year, so, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I believe next we have Paul. And thank you, Paul, for your kind words and your information with our Central Minnesota Jobs and Training folks. That was a nice presentation, and your piece of addition was appreciated. Before you begin, Paul, I would like to have Andrew, if Andrew is there. I had received a letter with kudos to you and your department, and I wanted that to be brought forward and made aware to the rest of the board today while you were here. It had been placed at the end of the agenda for today, but while you were present and making your report to us, I wanted Andrew to mention this letter of congratulations to you. Andrew, are you there? Would you take that over, please?
Sure, Madam Chair. So we did receive a letter from the Minnesota Department of Health regarding our social services department's financial reporting and saying that we did a fantastic job over the past year. So congratulations to Paul and the entire team over there.
Well done, well done.
Our accounting team rocks, and we've really been able to do a lot better job because now all of our employees have gone through a training about the importance of time recording and getting their bills in time, and that's really helped the process. But yeah, the folks there are pretty awesome. So thank you for the recognition, and I will be sure to share that with them as well because they're doing the hard work. So.
Yeah, well, very good. I wanted that recognition to be acknowledged at this point. Thank you very much. Well, Paul, we'll hear from you.
Okay, I had planned to do a food security presentation today, but since Central Minnesota Jobs and Training was here, we wanted to make sure that your attention was able to be focused on them and to be respectful of your time. So the next board meeting, we will be doing a presentation on SNAP benefits and food security in Meeker County. So I apologize that we kicked that down the road, but I just felt it would be better for you to understand some of the programs that they have to offer. The only order of business I have before you today is our accounts payable.
Make a motion to approve the social service accounts payable.
Madam Chair, I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve accounts payable. Is there any discussion or questions?
That's a first for you.
Oh, I don't know what to do.
I didn't last night, but I didn't find anything, so,
Yours was pretty simple this time around.
yeah, it was
Yes,
pretty straightforward.
This time it was fairly straightforward. We didn't have a lot of unusual bills, but if you were to look at our budget, I think one thing I'd like to continue to call notice to, and Commissioner Johnson brought this forward with a large bill the last time we met for children in out-of-home placements. You can see that there is a volume this time for children in out-of-home placements, and again, we're continuing to try to work on that. It is kind of a sign of the times. I don't think we will ever get to a zero sum in this particular area. And it's also a reflection of the challenges that we face in finding suitable placements for children, given their particular needs for care. So if in your travels you hear of any initiatives that are focusing on trying to expand access to out-of-home placements, some of that is good. Again, we're trying not to do out-of-home placements, but we do throughout the state need more opportunities and more resources in that area. So.
Do, Paul, does the effect of the schools being shut down in that structured environment, I'm sure that has to have an impact on, or will at some
We
point.
fully
I mean,
don't know for sure how that's going to really materialize on the scene. But our reports are challenging. As I've said before, our primary reporters have been school districts. Our reports from school districts are way down. So we assume that there will be more need for we're hopeful that that doesn't materialize into the need for out-of-home placements and that our children aren't getting to that level of safety risk. But again, it's kind of that area that we're just all apprehensive about.
Sure.
Paul, I absolutely loved this report that Barb had furnished to us. I've gone over it several times, but I can see where stress for families would be. When you look at the cost, the basic needs cost living estimates, now this is based on 2019.
Mm-hmm.
In a family of 4, 2 adults, and yearly cost of living at $50,000, and you start looking at that as, okay, that's an hourly wage of $16.23. And, this is just costs. This isn't anything. Yeah, so I can see where families might have some stress.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how this all unfolds with the new stimulus package. I don't recall exactly what they're naming it, but I think it's 1.9 trillion. It's going to be interesting to see how that either alleviates or has an impact on families. We just don't know. There hasn't been a lot of information that's coming out. I know the state is in legislature. They're looking at some of the issues regarding folks that haven't been paying their rent or their mortgages. Are going to be funding that assist them. That will have a significant impact on our operations depending upon how that shakes out. Because we do know that housing is a significant component to family stability, anybody's stability for the most part. Politics aside, it's not for me to determine how that plays out, but I get to deal with
the fallout.
Of it.
So I got a quick question, and not that I'm trying to prolong this conversation, but when people who are getting assistance get the stimulus and the 600 and the 1,400 and the on and on, that isn't take away from what they're getting as benefits. Or when they get big tax returns.
For some of the programs, it does not. Part of
large tax returns.
Some of the programs that does not have an impact on their eligibility. And part of our conversation regarding SNAP benefits will talk about.
I'm not stating an opinion on it one way or the other. I'm just saying there's things that they do get that doesn't count against what they're doing.
Correct. Yes.
And there are lots of jobs available in this area right now. Lots.
Yep. So. And that's why we're hopeful, and we like our partnership with Central Minnesota Jobs and Training, because a lot of the programs do have an employment component to it. Unfortunately, some of those employment components were put on hold during COVID times. So we're hopeful to see this all kind of ramp back up and get those jobs filled and get people into meaningful employment.
I had one question I was looking at. It was, the Department of Corrections Financial Services. It was one vendor, one transaction for $108,000. I thought, wow, that's a lot for one vendor, one transaction. Can you explain that for me?
Commissioner Bredesen, that's on the next item.
Okay. I think I missed 108. Did you see my face go white?
That's it, those canteen expenses you have going.
That was a test call.
Thank you, Commissioner Bredesen. I appreciate the palpitations that I'm going through.
Oh, too funny.
I could see the look on your face like.
Oh,
So I'm one jump ahead, sorry. I just had to get your heart pumping. Okay, well, we have a motion and a second to accept the accounts payable. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Corey, would you please take the roll?
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Oberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion carries.
thank you so much for your time this morning.
Anything else for us
Thanks, Paul.
today, Paul? Okay. I believe Barb is next.
Good morning, Commissioners. The only item I have is the accounts payable, and Julie, because you brought that up, I'm gonna right away lend to have Andrew discuss the late billing and also the billing within the Commissioners' warrants for corrections.
Yes, so
Very good, thank you.
the $108,000 bill that you noted is for the second half of 2020 for our probation services. The county recently contracted with the state to conduct probation services, and so with that, we cover a portion of 2 employees' salaries and benefits. So that comes in a biannual payment. This was the second half for 2020.
Okay, and I had tucked that in with Paul's questions. I'm sorry about that. That was for Barb. Okay. Anything else for us,
I
Barb?
would say not, unless there was other questions. That's the one that was brought to my attention by Commissioners.
Okay. And you're
Matt?
looking for approval of the accounts payable today?
Correct, Julie. And then the other question we have is, do you want the Vice President to, or Vice Chair to sign the payables today, or do you want to have them done electronically?
Maybe that's a Corey question. Corey, is that something that
Can be done
can
either
be
way.
done?
It can be
Which
done either
prefer?
way, whatever your preference is, Madam Chair.
We're still in a
Beth, are
pandemic,
you
so we can do
available
it
to
that way.
help with that today?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay, that would be nice. Then it can be taken care of immediately.
Thank you, and so
Alright.
then you'll have a motion.
I would entertain a motion to accept accounts payable.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion to accept the accounts payable.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion to accept the accounts payable. Any further questions or discussion? Corey, would you please take the roll?
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Oberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion carried. All right. At this point, we are going to recess the county board and convene as county ditch authority. We would make note of that, please. And John, are you our next speaker?
Yep, John Condon, Meeker County Ditch Inspector. This morning I bring to you, your attention, County Ditch 47. I know last fall we had an informational meeting with a couple of the commissioners that are still here regarding there's a lot of work to be done on this. The Middle Fork Crow River is actually County Ditch 47. So the Middle Fork Crow River Watershed District have actually recently done some survey work. They've identified some problematic areas, basically, main thing is like bank stabilization, erosion areas. They have some projects that they would like to do and wanna bring this to your attention, so I will turn it over to them. Right now, it'll be Margaret and Andrew from the Middle Fork Crow River.
Thank you, commissioners, for having us.
Thank you.
I'm Margaret Johnson, the administrator at the Middle Fork River Watershed District, and with me is Andy Johnson. He is the project manager at the Middle Fork River Watershed District. In 2015, we did a feasibility study on the Middle Fork Crow River in Meeker County, which is also CD 47, and identified several projects that we would like to do when it comes to erosion. We have some issues with sedimentation and also impairments of E. coli, and we have identified them on the map in front of you. We are looking for a partnership with the county, and with that partnership, we would be able to access different types of state funding through grant opportunities of Clean Water Fund, through the Board of Water and Soil Resources. Without that partnership, we are really limited to the amount of work that can be done either through local tax levy and would have not a whole lot of opportunity to use these grant funds available. What you see in front of you are 8 projects. If they were to all be implemented, it would be a little over $580,000. And this would help in the future to certainly keep some of the sedimentation that is happening and the sedimentation issues causing, exacerbating the flooding and sedimentation downstream. So today we're just really looking for a partnership. We've come to you on a few other occasions, and it's really kind of moved to the point of moving forward and building these projects, maybe over the course of several years, because they are all quite very large. And there's a lot going on with easements, with landowners, and definitely access to these projects to build. Are there any questions that you might have?
Define partnership.
So a partnership would look like when we actually are filling out a grant application with the Board of Water and Soil Resources, it's actually called multi-purpose drainage.
Okay.
We would actually need to be able to list you as the county as a partner. If we don't, that would mean that you guys aren't interested in the work that's being done. So that partnership is really just support of the watershed district to be able to build the projects that we've identified on this study.
Okay.
Has there been any negative feedback from the landowners that are adjacent to this ditch then? Or is there a pretty good synergy between you guys and all the landowners?
We haven't reached out to every single landowner, but we do know that there's landowners out there interested in working with us and completing some of the projects that we've identified. We haven't spoken to every single landowner, but that is something certainly that would come with this grant and being able to develop this project further. Really, the first step is identifying which projects need to be done and how much it's gonna cost, as well as the engineer's designs, which we already have. Once we have determined that, it's really figuring out the funding source, and once we have the funding source solidified, which would require a partnership from the county, then we can go through and really move forward with developing those projects with the landowners.
So
Following up on what, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mark.
What Danny said, what reasons do landowners give for not being interested in something? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so most of the time when we're working with landowners, sometimes the apprehensiveness tends to be with a cost share contract. And that means you would actually be placing a lien on these project areas for 10 years. It means that for 10 years, they're unable to touch the project, to tear it out, to remove it, to manipulate it in any way different than how it was installed.
So you kind of take over ownership of that, whatever piece you've done for 10
It's still privately owned land, it's just an easement making sure that the project stays intact for that 10-year period. And that's just to make sure that the state money that we're using is protected, and so state grant funds are all like this. They require that landowners have a 10-year cost share contract.
So they can still sell it, but they just have to.
Correct.
And then that easement just goes on to the next.
Stays
owner.
with the
Exactly right.
property.
It would seem there really wouldn't be a negative issue for them in fixing it, or? I mean, I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
It's usually comes, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think usually that's gonna be in the next step. Right now, you're basically because we are partners on the Middle Fork, that we need to give the blessing for you to go ahead and apply and go after grants and funding, correct? And from there, the plan will be identified to the landowners and from then you'll have some opposition and discussions, if you will, or proponents and opponents.
So unless we do the partnership, it doesn't go any further.
Unless we give them they can't even go. Is that what we're
This-
basically?
The particular funding pot that we are looking at requires the partnership of the county. If you guys are uninterested, we can still work with these private landowners. We would just have to find other competitive funding, which is much more competitive in nature than the funding that would allow us to partner with you. To us, it's low-hanging fruit. It's the path of least resistance to get these projects in the ground, and requires the least amount of effort when it comes to collecting that funding and then going and building the projects. All of the land would remain private land by the private landowners themselves. The easement would just be in place for 10 years, requiring that project to remain intact for 10 years.
Okay.
We hope that people would keep their projects in longer, knowing that there is a benefit to the ditch system and also to the river to keep that sedimentation out of the river, prolonging, some of the issues that you have into the future where you're doing much more big repairs and improvement projects in the future.
Thank you.
Do you anticipate getting the majority of this grant money to pay for this project, or?
Yes, we do.
Almost 100%, huh?
Hopefully, yeah.
Okay.
That's our goal. This grant opportunity comes about every biennium, and so if we only get half of it, this fall we would be applying in August. If we could wait and then apply for the second half as like a phase 2. I think that if we see success in this partnership and we're only allowed half of the grant funding just because the nature of these grant pots depend on the sales tax amendment from 2008, we can go for more grant funding into the future.
Well, I think long story short, basically, our blessing today allows you to move forward, but it also does not, we in no way are approving dirt work at this point,
That is
or a
correct.
project.
That is
And
correct.
That's a good clarification in my mind. Just
Cause I think that's what everybody's,
And we are committing no funds today also.
yeah, it's just
I will
seeking.
make one note is these are repairs that probably one way or the other, the county's gonna have to do something about them because they're pretty major areas. I think if they can get some grant funding to help, that would say, it'd be a huge savings to the ditch system itself because some of these areas are pretty bad.
And, one thing I have a question moving forward at some point. How did Meeker County and the Middle Fork, this is the Middle Fork of the Crow and you're the Middle Fork watershed, how did we become partners and is there opportunity where maybe we ain't the best partners? And that would be a system that the Middle Fork would take over and manage on their own. I mean, are we needed as a partner?
You guys are needed as
I'm not saying
partners.
this is an unhappy marriage, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
is there a better way of doing this in the future?
Currently, you're the drainage authority for this system. It also is a public waterway, which confuses a lot of people, but because it's a public waterway, we're gonna need the blessing also of the Army Corps through the dredged material parts of the projects and also from the DNR. So unlike some public ditch systems where you're allowed to go in and make improvements, you do not need the blessing of the DNR and the Army Corps, but in this case, that's where our office is gonna help facilitate that. This isn't a dirt work blessing, it is just a blessing to go after the funding, in order to complete some of these projects, and you're gonna see a lot more of us, I think, in the future.
Will individual property owners be assessed to assist with this correcting of the banks?
They will not be assessed. The grant does require a match, and that match would come from the watershed district and through those property taxes that actually are assessed through the entire watershed, which is 275 square miles. That's where that in-kind would come from. The special assessments would not, there would be no special assessments taking place to build these projects when it comes to the private landowners of the 8 project locations.
Okay.
So what are we looking for here? A motion to become partners? Or?
Basically, a motion. I'll make a motion, Madam Chair, that, Meeker County Drainage Ditch Authority, approve the recommendation of, Middle Fork Crow River Watershed to seek funding for the project.
We have a motion, do I hear a second?
I will second that motion, Madam Chair.
We have a motion before us to allow the individuals to seek funding for the repair of this area. Is there any further discussion or questions? Any further discussion? We will take the roll. Corey, please?
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you, very good. John, was there anything additional or is that,
No, that was it.
Can I exit with them?
Thank you.
that would take care of it? All right, well, at this point, I will adjourn the County Ditch Authority and we will reconvene as the county board. And I believe our next presenter is Braden. And could I ask that the speakers at the table, I don't know if you need to move the microphone just a little bit closer, that would be advantageous.
Good morning, Commissioners. Can you hear me fine?
Oh,
Too
you're
fine?
loud, no?
We'll back that up.
Command voice.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am Braden Pirum, Park Superintendent. I'm here to approve the bid contract for the Coronis restroom and shower facility. And the low bid would be Voss Plumbing and Heating of Paynesville Incorporated. And this is, again, part of that whole grant project I've discussed multiple times and through multiple years as well. Something that we did actually receive. And
Just click on the screen, not on the top there. There you go.
still getting used to it. So just as an example here, I have a little slide here so everyone can familiarize themselves with the campground. So this is just a cutout of the map itself for the campground. And that shower marking there on the legend there, that's actually where the facility is currently, and that's where the new one will also be. So if I move the mouse, it's right in this area. So we have the office here, storm shelter, and then this is our main shower and restroom facility. So just a little history of this whole grant process and the overall projects. The main project, obviously, as part of this is the demolition of the old existing shower facility. And then the construction of a new block facility on there with wooden roof and proper ventilation, kind of the whole deal. It's a full redesign, but we're ultimately building it on roughly the same imprint as the existing one right now. The reason being is because of the way our septic system is set up and we have a solar water heating unit out there, there's just no room for expansion along with all the roads and services out there. But we were able to add in during the design process an extra shower and an extra restroom on each side. And improved our overall utility room and everything like that, as well as for winterization, we made that more streamlined. Another part is it was suggested for quite a few years now, and it rolled into this grant process really well, is adding a second well to the campground. Because there's a caretaker home and then also the shower facility as well as all of our spigots that head out to all the campers. It was suggested that we put in a double one to keep basically a public water source separate from a so-called private one. So that is something we put aside, and then any septic adjustments we may have to make. Now, we shouldn't see anything too major here because I did have a compliance done on it just recently. Got the paperwork this morning and everything checked out great on it. But we will have to cut off the old system and do whatever we need to do to reattach that. And then, of course, the next part is the privacy fencing, sidewalks, anything that gets disturbed during that process, we'll have to rebuild it. The nice part about this section is I've already lined it up with Stearns County. Basically, that area will be materials only. We're gonna work together on doing the labor on the installation of those two items. And then any final site prep, meaning the grading, seeding, grass, all that, we'll all do in-house on there. So ultimately, we had the outdoor rec grant that we were approved for and the county had accepted was approved for 50% of that overall project cost. So that would be $180,000 we have coming from the grant funds. And then the original estimate was $360,000. Now, we put this together at the end of 2019, had all of our estimates and everything like that. Our projects, other than the main shower and restroom facility, they haven't changed for cost, they haven't increased. Our biggest increase was in that shower and restroom facility, the construction of it. And the main thing was materials. So what we're looking at is we're short 30,000 is what it ended up being. So I'll pop back here. We had 7 bidders on this project, was actually a pretty high number to come in there, and they're all pretty competitive. Our lowest bid came in at $359,000 to Boss Plumbing. That's still roughly about 8.8% over our original estimate. And after having quite a few different conversations and also checking with some other counties on other building projects they have, what we've seen is, being as we put all these numbers together in 2019 and the pandemic hit in 2020, we saw massive surges in materials. So that number really reflects the overall materials in that building project. So that's where that shortage is coming from right now. At $359,000, it eats up basically every penny we have and won't be able to do those side projects unless we approve an additional $30,000. And I will say those the fencing, sidewalks, septic, all that was part of the original grant contract as well. So that is all looped into the same kind of funding source there from the state and why they approved it as well. So here's a breakdown of kind of where we had put it together. So the new updated cost estimate, the shower and restroom facility, that is now at about $360,000. With our pad previously, we had estimated about $330,000. That was a generous increase over our original estimates as well. Obviously, things changed significantly. We have $15,000 for the well and any piping updates we have to do for that, so we have a good coverage on that. And then estimates on our septic adjustments, and then the fencing, sidewalk, all that. And of course, anywhere we can save money throughout the project, we of course will. But we do have to have an overall budget increase. And that $30,000 budget increase to $390,000 total, that would be split yet again between us and Stearns County. And I have already had extensive conversation with Stearns County, and they already committed their half of that $30,000, so the $15,000 towards the project. So what I'd be looking for is our additional $15,000 towards this project. Meeker County does have to cover the entire bill. That's just the way these grant processes work. We write the bills and then we get reimbursed from Stearns County and from the state then on these items.
Brady, a question. I know I've asked you this before. On the new construction with the plumbing and with COVID, is there any way that some of those fixtures and so forth could COVID related where we might be able to use some of the grant money or the money that we will get in this next CARES Act or whatever we're going to call it, the American Relief Bill? Is there a chance that, plumbing fixtures are expensive?
Yep.
And if they have to be hands-free and stuff?
What I had a discussion, multiple discussions with the EDA who handles these grants and everything. They said that very first grant that came out, this may have been able to get by with updating fixtures and everything, but the current round that is out essentially, or will be out, we do not qualify for that. So as of right now, we don't.
Do you have money in your budget? You have money.
We have the
in
$360,000 in budget right now, and then that additional 30,000 or 15 for Meeker share would have to come out of the park fund balance, which
That's
we
what
do
I'm
have.
asking. You have money in the park fund balance to
Yep.
do that. So there's no reason, I'm surprised maybe that it didn't go up more. Things
I
are
was
going
looking
up,
at
so
8.82.
I would
and
make
thought
a
that was
motion
reasonable.
that we pass this and, we will end up paying the 30 and then we'll get 15,000 reimbursed from,
Correct.
so that would be my motion.
We have a motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
I just got one question. When you did this bidding, I don't see much local here. Nobody chose to bid locally or?
No, the only ones were basically out of Painesville and Kimball were the closest ones, but we advertised in every local paper in our area as well as online, so
Maybe
we
it's
tried to
just-
reach local as
That,
much
that
as
was
we
my
could.
question. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion or questions here?
To piggyback off what Commissioner Johnson said, with these new COVID fundings, I think what he is saying is, do we have an opportunity to actually capitalize on that and pay for the extra amount through COVID funding by just, putting it into that budget? I mean, it's just another avenue where we can capitalize on it.
It's a possibility. We're still waiting rules from the Treasury as to exactly how the money from the American Rescue Plan could be used, so it's possible, but we'll have to take a look.
So they could, potentially down the road, maybe we can refund, put money back into your fund.
Yeah.
From that.
That makes
There
total
might
sense.
be
I just meant that was another bucket opportunity that you could use if we're trying to use up funds, cause I'm sure that's the way it was the last time. You're trying to figure out, okay, how can we utilize these funds according to their rules? And maybe this is one of
And
those.
one of the problems is the rules come out about 8 weeks
After the-
No, I
You know what I mean? That is
Yeah.
one of the challenges. The rules come later, you get the check and then it's like, you can use it for this, and this.
I just keep this
And
in
maybe
mind.
that, but we're not sure, so just wait a minute.
Supposedly, they're gonna be tracking
Play
this
that.
really, really close.
Oh,
That's what I
yeah.
heard an important person say on television yesterday. So let's hold them to it.
Good luck to that,
I know, I
right?
hear you.
And can I make one other comment just regarding the grant funds there? I did check with the state. Traditionally, once you accept a grant for that amount, it can't be amended. But I thought if there was some projects that fell through, we decided to check in, and there is no extra funding through the state to get, so I can't do that either.
That's fine.
And our number is, of that 8.8% increase, we're only,
4.4.
picking up 4.4, so.
Like I said, I'm surprised from what I've been seeing out there that you didn't have a higher increase. So
surprised as
I
well.
think the sooner we get it signed and sealed, the better.
I agree.
Yep, I agree too.
We have a motion, it has been seconded. Is there any additional discussion? Any other questions? We'll take the roll. Corey, please?
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion carries. Is there anything else for us, Braden?
That's all I have at the moment. Otherwise, I appreciate that, and we'll keep moving through with the project here, so.
Thanks, Brad.
This will be scheduled. The interesting thing about this, just so everyone is aware, is, so we'll take care of the contract and everything now, but the project won't actually begin until the beginning of October, just because there's no possible way we could squeeze it in before campground opening. And I would just like to comment, as of 4 o'clock yesterday, we had opened camping reservations at 8 AM. We took in 25,000, a little over in revenue, which is double any average year we've ever received in a day, so.
Well,
think
the
that's it.
warm weather last week too, I saw a lot of people talking about, we gotta get camping,
Yeah.
so it's all
an
good.
inkling of what to come, I would say.
I
there.
think so. I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Braden. Wow, that's excellent. Okay, moving along, I believe we have Phil. There he is.
Good morning, Phil Schmalz, Public Works Director. 2 items for consideration this morning. Figure out where we're at here. The first one is a request to purchase survey equipment. So we're currently, for our GPS unit we use for surveying our topography surveys before a project, our construction surveying during a project. We have a 2011 R8 GPS and controller. So it's about 10 years old. It's no longer supported by our retailer, I guess I'd call them. We wanted to upgrade the machine last year, but we decided to wait a year because we were in the middle of a grading project, and with any electronic equipment, especially survey equipment, we don't want to pull it during the middle of a project, so we wanted to wait until grading was complete. So the purchase was in the 2020 Public Works budget, so $30,000 was in our budget last year. So that should theoretically be the amount that's currently sitting in our reserves for this purchase.
Question for you, Phil. This equipment, being where it's at and stuff, is it subject to getting damaged very easily?
Yeah, it potentially could get damaged. You're on a construction site with it during a project.
So we have a warranty, right? But that probably wouldn't cover damage.
I do not know
I saw
details of the warranty.
a 1-year factory hardware warranty.
Okay.
That's just below number 6. And then number 7 is a 1-year additional hardware warranty. But that isn't still gonna cover damage, probably.
I'm not sure. I'd be guessing.
Guess not, but. And I see they're giving us $2,000 for our old equipment, huh?
Yes. And the price, I should mention, this is state contract pricing, so it's pre-negotiated with the state, and we're allowed to piggyback on the state's pricing.
I saw that 30,000 was budgeted, but there was $969.80 still needed to make the purchase. How will this be handled?
We have funds in our reserves. I wouldn't expect any additional transfers or anything for the $1,000.
I'll move to approve the purchase of the survey equipment.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to purchase the survey equipment. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none. Corey, would you please make the roll call?
Commissioner Schiefelbein?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Obert?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you. The second item I have is to award our bid for intersection lighting, State Project 047070-013. This is a federal highway safety improvement project that we requested funds for back in 2018. And as you can see by the numbers we got, 50% over our estimate was our lowest bid. Cost of materials is mainly what they cited again. Copper, conduits, luminaires, the poles, everything is up. The fact we had 4 bids tells me contractors are looking for work. It's materials related. Delaying the project to try and get better bids, I'd say it's an option. I'd say it's unlikely we would get better bids. And if we don't complete the project this year, we lose that federal funding that we've been awarded. There's a chance, I don't know how good the chance is, that we will get made whole with the HSID federal funding. We won't know that until more bids come back on projects out of that pot, and they'll look at what's left in the state and decide if we can have some more. Ultimately, what we're talking about for overage, it's about $60,000 over what our estimate was. So if we were unsuccessful in getting additional federal funds, we would fund that with our county state aid dollars, our gas tax money, and we've got funds in our gas pot to cover that. I would suggest proceeding. The one big thing timeline wise on these is the light poles. Currently they're at about they're 9 months out on poles. So we're already looking at end of the season to get this built. Delay, I would be concerned about delaying it and getting those poles in time.
Is this gonna get my church out there by Darwin some lighting? They've been waiting patiently for a few years.
Yes,
Wow, they'll be,
that up there.
we've been
So they're kind of tough to see, but there's the intersections, the yellow dots are location. That's one of them, 14 and 33.
Good. I got an email about this a couple of years ago, so, and I kept telling Phil goes, well, we might get, so I've been saying, be patient, so this is good news, I think.
Yeah, intersection lights, so we kind of do a cheapened version of what the state would do, for example. The state may put 4 lights at an intersection, this is 1 light. And it helps to kind of demarcify the intersection, you can see the pole from a distance. In the dark, you see the light. In my experience, plow operators appreciate them, because they're out there in the dark usually, they can't see cleaning up. The light helps with that. So there's a lot of benefits, I'd like to see better prices, but this is the situation we're in right now.
I don't think it's gonna get any cheaper.
As long as they're printing money, you're gonna have inflated prices.
There's that old print
And
money
we're not
trick.
done, and we're not done yet.
Yeah,
I'm
I agree.
quite certain, so. I'd make a motion to approve, moving forward the intersection lighting and design project from Design Electric out of St. Cloud.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any additional discussion?
So we're still gonna
I
be
just-
looking, I'm sorry, Julie, we're still gonna be
No.
looking at some time yet before they're gonna start. You gotta order the poles and,
They'll order the poles as soon as I let them know the contract has been awarded,
but you're still gonna be looking at.
late
a month-
season,
Late
this fall,
this fall.
yes.
Okay.
That'd be my expectation.
Sometimes they shoot me another email, so I'll be glad to say maybe late this fall.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's coming, but I wouldn't expect it in the first half of the year.
Okay, thank you.
And we have that additional $60,000 worked into this motion and that's available now? Because it said that it came in $59,977 over the budget, correct?
Yep, the highway department would cover that out of our state aid funding pot, like we would any contract overages. Some come in high, some come in low, and we have a fund balance there to absorb that.
Okay. And then, if we could look at page 1 of the request, under the line where it says financial impact, I noticed, I believe it's a little spelling error. The word on the paper says budged, but I'm assuming it means budgeted.
That's
on page
the
1.
acronym for budgeted in the
Okay.
highway department world. I'm kidding, Julie.
But I thought, well, I don't know how fussy, I notice every now and then if there's an and, it's supposed to be an and. But this one was kind of a more descriptive word, budged versus budgeted. It's on
Watch it,
page
Phil.
1.
Okay,
You be more careful when you write these things up.
thank you.
It's the English teacher in
You
me,
feel
I'm
like you're in
sorry.
class? Kinda red.
Been doing this for years and I don't mean to pick on anybody, but I figured if it's a legal document, we maybe better have budgeted on page 1. Is there any other discussion or questions?
Just curious, how did you go determine like these intersections were needed?
Mainly what we looked at was state aid intersections, so higher use in a township intersection. And then we have a county road safety plan on file that we did with the state. It's probably 5 or 6 years old now, we have version 2 that was approved last year. And that rates these intersections as far as risks. And they actually call out projects in those. So the majority of these, there's a project identified in our county road safety plan specifically for intersection lighting.
Gotcha.
It's break time, Julie.
Well, I don't know that
Call
you're
the
gonna
vote.
get one.
Call the vote.
Call the question.
Any other discussion? We have a call for the question. So Corey, would you please take the roll?
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion carries for the lighting project. Anything else for us, Phil?
I could share some positive news.
Be good.
If you're interested. So at our April ATP, our Area Transportation Partnership Group meeting, we should formally be approved for the $2.6 million in federal funding for CASA 3, and then another $360,000 for pavement replacement at the Darwin-Dassel rest stop, which we have a park there, and another $350,000 worth of highway safety improvement funds, the same pot this is from.
Nice.
So, should be a formality in April. I expect to get those. I guess I'm excited about it.
Cool.
And then the Lrip funding, I got some information on that this morning. That was the CASA 14 project. The state got double the applications that they've ever gotten. So there's 421 applications to spread across from that $75 million pot.
Wow.
So it's going to be very competitive.
So that probably, we don't know how that's gonna.
I think we had a really good project, but I don't know what else is in the pot. I only know what the townships in one city from Meeker County submitted. So I'm still hopeful, but maybe a little less hopeful than I was.
This is an ongoing one, 421 apps. Is that, did you say double?
Double their highest turnout with this program. So, yeah, the word's out there. People are going after it. That's what it's for. But that's all I wanted to share.
Thanks.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Phil.
I wish us all good luck. Thank you, Phil. Now, I do see that we have a 10-minute break option here on the agenda. Are we going to acknowledge that?
I am.
Oh, yeah. Yes, we are.
Already gone.
Most certainly am.
All right. I will take advantage of that as well. We will take a
Go to the
2-minute
beach
break.
for a while.
Corey, do we have a time? What time is it exactly now, and when should we reconvene here?
My view from, at the clock looks about 10:29,
Exactly.
so about 10:39, 10:40.
Yeah, otherwise they'll find it anyway. They'll waste it
You're in
anyway.
charge
They love
of
that they
rounding.
locally.
So I'm kinda out of the loop.
I can go to the rest of them because I run the clock. So that's my loop. So
I heard that
Nice
at
of Brandy
Fish
to bring
Fry
coffee.
where I
God,
was getting my update the other day.
well,
Next
yeah,
time
it
we
was
don't, I don't have
They said Painesville now, just because
Really?
of timing, that's,
Green Valley's got a good team.
yeah.
I mean, you just throw up to that strike kid and he's foot taller than you, practically.
Oh,
Just,
he
you
is,
know.
too. Josh. I
Yeah.
always said he'd be the best, cause them boys were with my kids, pretty much Josh is the tail ender, but he
Yeah.
had them other three brothers that beat up on him as a.
Oh, I bet.
He had to be tough.
You know, they used to go to our church, you
Yep.
know, and then something happened. I had to go to St. Nick's. And then suddenly I saw him for the first time, you know, because I haven't got to go football either this year. And it's like, holy crap, he's like 2 feet taller. And
In my opinion.
Jared, the oldest one, was as old as my
had,
son. He was always big.
he's
First team
Big.
he's a beefy kid, right? Yeah.
He looked like a man when he was like 8 years old.
I know, exactly.
I've never.
Cut.
I know. It's like, God, I hated those kids. It's like,
They were
geez,
good. They were good athletes.
our family's always just skinny and bony, and I'm like, God, look at that kid. Got some bad genetic stock.
Well, and they're, you know, like Litchfield, you had the early girls and
I
the
do know.
cousins. That, you
Oh,
know, I mean,
okay,
they're all,
yeah.
that's all intertwined. You got
Yeah.
the Stummus and the Straight, and I mean, all of them are pretty good sized people, and
Straights have been tall and good for years.
you know.
We're living in an age where you can't say damn thing.
Then there's a Stummus, one of their first cousins, Adam Stummus. He's close to, he's not far behind Josh, and he's a 8th or 9th grader.
Oh, wow.
You know, so he's coming too, yeah.
That'd be great for our football team, huh?
And Janice Straight is his mom, so I mean.
Be years of Kimball trying to cover that guy, huh?
I thought they handled it very, very well.
Just throw it up high, I think is how
My
it
Diane
Kimball
told
this
me.
year. It's just to that Josh, and then no one can touch him, you know? As long as the quarterback could throw it high enough, you just catch it above everybody else. Sheesh.
She was really happy about how it's handled, but before we got to
Thank
this
you, my
point,
stomach was growling.
That was a cluster.
I wasn't following
That-
what you were saying there
When
because
the
we
COVID
were
was
in
two different-
Well, you were, but who's the
Yeah.
kids? I'm from Prime
Well,
Health. but-
really.
What's that?
I
Well,
said the kids.
they
handled it.
called me.
I know,
They must have
they
called
handle it better than the parents
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah.
before they even said it. I said, we don't have a choice in there. We'll see. A lot of things are going on.
Madam Chair, I think we're ready whenever you are.
All right, have we all, let's see here now. Have we all returned? Are we ready to?
Everybody but
return?
you, where are you, Julie?
She has to hide her pina colada first.
Too soon.
Really?
Well, I would like to bring our meeting back into focus here. I believe our next speaker is Greg.
You are correct.
Okay.
Greg Schultz, Land Use Director, today from Board of Commission, or Planning Commission meeting from March 9, 2021. We have 1 CUP, 2 IUPs, 1 rezone, and 1 preliminary plat. Should I bring it up on the screen?
Just click through.
Okay. So first one up, we got a conditional use permit for Rafterville Solar LLC. Location is 5121 250th Street, Atwater, Minnesota, for parcel 01008700. Here's a site map. This is for a 1 megawatt solar project. And here's a site plan, the overall picture. Any questions on that?
Was there anyone at the meeting that was contesting?
No.
Or
The only two that showed up for the meeting were the project manager for Nexamp and the engineer for Nexamp. The other ones represented.
And you guys thought it was a good site for one, and it was?
Yep.
Okay.
Them
About
are,
250 feet off of Highway 12.
I think them are turkey barns.
Yep, those are
Right
Jenny
there.
O.
So it's right
Oh,
next
I
to
know where
some-
it's at then. Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
It's, is that the county line?
That's a county line.
That's
Yes.
county line. Turkey barns are in Candy.
Yep. Yeah, Genio did not comment. That's their barns.
It would have very little impact on them anyway, would it? If any at all.
Maybe.
And is the railroad right there too?
Railroad's right there.
Right
between
on the
Highway 12
north
and that
end.
site as well.
Yeah. So it's
Here-
kind of, it's in the right area, I guess.
And if I recall, there's, that railroad is built up anyway.
You won't even see it
Yeah.
from the highway, really.
Yes, can we, I see here the piece of paper with all the little dots on it. If we could look at dot number 7, count down and look at the 7th little dot. There's a wording there that I was questioning. Okay, now that, I think we went a little bit too far. If we could
How do you back
go
up?
back a page, at least what I'm seeing on my screen. There was this page with several little dots of points
I
that
think
were
it's
made.
under the request for board action, Greg. That
It's,
would
it's
be my
page
guess.
1 right there.
Page 1.
Yeah, right.
Under the RBA.
That's what I'm guessing.
Okay.
Which dot, Madam Chair?
Should be dot number 7. I thought there was a whole page of little dots, and I'm not seeing the number 7, but there
This
was,
wasn't my idea.
or was it maybe in the actual
Why not-
requested?
Can you read what sentence you're talking about, Julie, Madam Chair?
It says dot number 7, it said provides access.
Yeah, it provides
this
access
project
to
will
that,
provide-
those who live in XL territory. You see it, Greg?
Yep, I see it. That's on the
I
RBA.
wonder,
It's not on the screen.
provides access for whom? I was curious about that statement, something about providing access. And I wondered who needed access, is that like an easement or?
Madam Chair, I can talk on that. XL is the federally approved company, if you will, that has a contract with the federal government. So to put in a solar farm, you have to have access to XL Energy, transmission lines.
Okay.
You can't build that in Meeker cooperative territory. Because Meeker can't hook up to it, they don't have the contract with the federal government.
Cause they launched,
Okay.
according to this, they launched the solar program, XL did, right? So this is their program. So I would guess they have to have access to anything on there. Is that what you're
And they
saying?
have the interconnection agreement with XL.
Right, so they have
Nobody-
access to go look at it or do whatever they want to do, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Is that it, or they can only provide electricity to those who are in XL territory?
No, I believe that they're connected only to the XL grid. So
Okay.
whoever
Yes.
XL
Yeah, that's what it,
provides power to is how I think it's.
so should it have said that, just that phrase been a little different? Speaking of the grid,
Could be.
but.
It's,
Oh, I see, so they only provide access as only XL customers can use it. Is that what it's saying?
Well, it's feeding the
Only
XL line.
grid, and the XL is distributing to whoever.
Right, so then I don't understand, okay.
See, XL could sell to Meeker Cooperative,
Yes,
correct?
they could sell anybody.
Therefore, that
Going to the
electricity
grid.
would go.
So it just said
Yes.
it provides access to them, it doesn't say nobody, it doesn't
Yeah,
eliminate
okay.
anyone else with that
Yeah,
statement.
yeah.
Okay, so it's not physical access, it's access to the
The
grid.
electrical grid.
Okay.
The electrical power. I believe that's it.
Okay, yeah, I was a little confused by that statement, just what did access mean? And then if you go down to the next little dot, it'd be dot number 8, right below that. There again was a wording, having to blank panels, having to install panels, there was something missing within that statement. Dot number 8.
It says provides cleaner renewable energy without having, well, I suppose, to install panels and everything else. Just add a
Okay,
word.
there should be a word in there, a descriptor. Okay. What word was selected to be put in there?
Install.
Install, let's go with install.
Okay. And then if you go down to the final dot on that page, there again, this is just an English teacher thing. The word says need, but I believe it should be needed.
Okay.
On the final little dot on that page.
Concur.
I don't know.
Okay, and I think, all right. Those were, my comments on the page with the little dot. And then if you go to page 1, way at the bottom, the individual's name is Matt, and I'm not certain how to spell his last name. It was spelled 2 different ways. W-A-L-S-M, or is it supposed to be Walsh? W-A-L-S-H. It was spelled 2 different ways.
When I looked at the roster, it looked like it's W-A-L-S-M. It's hard to tell what it's spelled.
Okay, well, I would assume that then would need a correction. Then I had a question, has an agreement on any cleanup? I know we had kind of discussed this earlier about different things. If a piece of property such as this is decommissioned in the future, who's left holding the cleanup bill? The company, the property owner, or the county?
First off, it's the property owner and the applicant, however they want to work that out. The county is only responsible for cleanup if the property is forfeited to the county.
Okay. Okay, so Amcrest Properties would be responsible for any recycling or cleanup of the property then?
Correct.
Okay.
Madam Chair, and that's spelled out in the contract between the solar farm and the property owner.
Okay, I know
So
we had
that-
kind of, this had been brought up in another conversation with another piece of property, and I just wondered if that was written down so that the county isn't the one unless taxes aren't paid, property is forfeited back. I was curious.
I think that's what we talked about at one time, was if we
We
get
may-
stuck with it, the decommissioning might come down on us, and are we gonna be able to get rid, I think that was in, when we talked about, how much they were paying for a bond, if the bond was valuable enough, right, Greg? I think
That's-
that was the conversations that we'd had about that.
It varies between county to county, and we thought we'd take a look at that.
Our ordinance is open-ended. Planning commission and you use decisions and set whatever you want.
It is covered in number 14,
Yes.
where it says that they must provide a $75,000 guarantee so that the solar array site can be decommissioned.
Okay, I wanted to know that was understood. All right, so what we are seeking is a motion to approve the Rafterville Solar.
Madam Chair, I make the motion to approve the permit for Rafterville Solar with the changes that were so noted during our discussion.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
We have a motion. Is there any additional discussion? Any further discussion on the solar issue here? If not, Corey, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes?
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Bien,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes, motion carries. Okay, Greg, what's next?
Next item I have is a IUP 15556 for temporary asphalt plant. Applicant owner Knife River Corporation for parcel 11-006003.
I'll move to approve. Unless you had more you wanted to say about it, I thought it was pretty
Up to you if
straight.
you have questions on the
I thought it was
mapping,
pretty
the location.
straightforward, but
Madam Chair, I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the Drew Diedrich, to approve the Knife River Corporation permit. That one is the one that we have the motion and second for. Is there any additional discussion?
I see they
No
made a,
further
is that
discussion?
normal to put, when they talk about the storage of the concrete, that they're not gonna be able to store any on site, is that a normal condition to put on
That was
this,
a
or was
condition
there
on
a
the
different
old
reason?
one.
Pardon me?
That was a condition on the old.
That was
permit.
so that was from before, and
Yep.
so we
So
just
they took
carried.
that off.
Okay.
Because they want to be able to use concrete and asphalt and crushed concrete possibly to put in their product.
Sometimes the concrete piles are unsightly as you drive by them, and I think that drives a lot of the objection, doesn't it, Greg?
Exactly. Yep.
Do they recycle that, the concrete? Do they?
They grind it.
Grind it up.
Crush it? Okay, good.
Was there any opposition in regard to that with this issue?
No, not once it was, as it was explained to the public that the concrete would be ground up and put in the product. There wasn't any opposition. They just don't want any stockpiling without it being utilized, just as a dump site.
Any additional discussion or questions? Corey, would you please perform the roll call?
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion carries for Knife River. And Greg, you have another one?
Next one I have is an IUP, number 15558, for a second dwelling on a property. Applicant Drew Diedrich, location 37088 Minnesota Highway 4, Painesville, Minnesota, for parcel 170187000. There's a site map. And he's gonna be building a shells in this case. So it's gonna be he's gonna have a living quarters and a shells, and he's gonna have a header in there, main large header for large garage doors. When the parents no longer need the second dwelling, he's gonna remove the living quarters and make a shop or a shed out of it. That's his intentions.
Does the township approve on do they get approval from township on this? Do you know, Greg? I mean,
Did not get a
okay, that's,
comment on
I didn't know if it was required or not, I was just curious. But I'll make a motion to approve, the interim use permit for a second dwelling of a blood relative on 37088 Minnesota Highway 4, Painesville.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none. Corey, would you do roll call?
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion carries. Greg?
Okay. Next item I've got is a rezone application for, rezone application 15560, applicant Randy and Marilyn Heed for parcel 0700455030. So here's a site map and site location of this property.
Is that one?
Can you
Just one spot.
summarize
Just one lot,
the,
just one lot. One rezone and one lot, one plat, one lot.
Okay.
You see in the site
Please
location, the orange part, that's the part that's gonna be replatted.
I have a question. What does non-riparian mean?
Means it's still within the shoreline district, but not connected to the ordinary high water level of a lake.
Okay.
So it doesn't have any shoreland.
Does this
So
require
this
township
lot,
approval?
okay.
Okay. Get township approval.
Okay.
Yep, it did.
Is this a good place for a rezone? Does it fit the county's plan for?
Surrounded to the east of it is Conservation District. It's A1 all the way to the lake, but it's got, as you see, it's got many dwellings, the lake through building eligibility transfers or conservation easement. So this will be an R2. The contours, if you look at the contours on the map on your right, you can tell it's pretty hilly and it's pretty wet.
Yep.
So there's just an area kind of towards the roadside of 173rd, I believe, and the wetland, there's an area up there for a house. So,
Does this require, Greg, I'm assuming it doesn't, but did they transfer a building eligibility in here, or this is creating one?
This is creating.
Through the rezone?
When you go through the rezone to R1 or R2, you're creating an eligibility for that
All right.
property.
So this would then allow this piece of property to be sold as a building site
Correct,
for an individual home?
correct.
And can I add, what was your justification of saying, okay, this one can be reclassified, knowing the existing zoning laws that Meeker County have? I mean, what was the committee
I think going out on the site and you look at the contours, we had two committee members go out there and look at it, and they realized that this hasn't come up with any other parcels in the past. The rezoning part, they've all used, I believe, Randy can maybe explain more than I can, but through the eligibility process or the conservation process, they got eligibilities in the past. So this one here, they figured Greg Jans was out there and Corey Sells, and they determined that for agriculture use, it'd be good enough to use. So they determined that R1 or R2 would be a legitimate use of this property to put a house on.
Is this rezoning going to affect adversely the neighbors or the quality of the lake at all, or?
I can't speak to the neighbors, depends on what they want to use the property for in the future, it would be for that. For right now, it doesn't impact them at all. The location of it, there is quite a buffer between the lake and this site, so erosion shouldn't be an issue. There's a creek in between. Actually, it has the contour and the layout of the land, it shouldn't affect the water, stormwater runoff at all in any direction. It's either gonna go to the creek or to the wetland, to the west, or the creek to the east.
Was there anyone there objecting?
No, nobody's there to object it.
I move to approve the rezone and preliminary plat application by Randy and Marilyn Head.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
We have a motion with a second to approve the rezoning. Is there any additional discussion? No further discussion. Corey, would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes?
Commissioner Oberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion carries. Anything else, Greg?
Yeah, we got the preliminary plat application next, and that's for preliminary plat for 1559, applicant Randy and Marilyn Heed for parcel 070045030. This is to allow the plat after the rezoning for the same parcel.
What does plat mean? What?
Not exactly sure. I know that allows a building eligibility to be put on that parcel after you plat it. It goes from meets and bounds to a lot and block system.
But for a single family dwelling?
Isn't it?
That's what I
The
thought.
plat is
Yeah.
a survey.
I mean, it's just a piece that's surveyed.
Plat book.
Period.
Right?
Exactly.
Meets and bounds can
I don't know
also
if
be
it's a-
surveyed as well.
Would be the description of the property would
It's
be in the
usually a
plat.
map,
It's a
It's
map
a
it's a map of the property.
of the property.
plat book, plat book.
And it's still for a single family dwelling.
Exactly, yes.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the plat, and do we have any additional discussion? Hearing none, Corey, would you please take the roll?
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
No,
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion carries. Anything else for us today, Greg?
That's all I've got.
Okay, very good. Moving on, is Bill there?
I am. Sure. Morning.
Good morning.
I think it's still morning, isn't it? Well, thank you for allowing me some time to come in and introduce myself this morning. I think probably Commissioner Oberg is the only one that actually knows me and has worked with me in the past, as well as Corey and then Mikkel in the HR department. We sent out some information ahead of time. Most of that was just for your review to kind of give you a history of myself and my agency in the county. And I know you're on a time schedule and we're running a little behind, so mainly, other than with some questions at the end, the main thing that I wanted to talk to you about today and get you thinking about, we don't need any action today or we're not asking for any decisions, but the agreement that we have with Prime Health is a 5-year contract agreement for our group health plan. Now, this does not include the law enforcement group that's with PEEP. This would be all the other employees that are with the Prime Health Plan. That contract, we're into our 4th year. And if you read, I sent out the contract language and I highlighted the yellow areas that I wanted you to take a look at. I have had discussions with Matt and Leah at Prime Health. And it's my understanding that at the June board meeting, they're gonna be discussing that language, because when you look at it, it says that we're required to give a 12-month notice if we're intending to leave the group at the end of our 5 years to avoid any financial penalties, because there are pretty substantial financial penalties if we leave early, or if we would choose to leave early. The problem with that is if we're going to look at RFPs, which is requests for proposals from other carriers, we cannot do that for a length more than 90 days prior to our renewal date. So our contract would end December 31st of 2022. But if we had to give a 12-month notice, that would mean we'd have to give notice this December of 21. But we really would be handcuffed if we did that, because we don't know, we wouldn't be able to get any information from other carriers until like September. So we could actually start the process in August to get numbers together, and that's what my company does. Get all the information, all the data together, and then we submit that through an RFP, which is like any other RFP. We put an ad in the paper and, we solicit bids. And then the bidders, if they're interested, then they would supply us with a proposal 90 days prior to our January 1 date. So what I've asked Prime Health is to change the language in that contract. And again, it's my understanding they're gonna bring that up at the June board meeting to discuss that, because really, any groups that are in Prime Health It would pertain to all of the groups that are in there, but none of them would be able to really go out for RFPs, which then means if you don't do that, you're automatically locked in for another 5 years, whether you wanna be or not. So it's not a year by year, which is somewhat normal in the insurance world. Normally, when your renewal comes up, you can then go out for RFPs if you choose to do that, to see if there's something better out there in the market. But with this type of program, we're not allowed to do that because of the contract.
And I think, and I might be wrong, and I had some concerns when I saw this on the agenda, so I did give Andrew a call. We were on the ground floor of creating Prime Health, and it's been a great partner for us. We've paid lower. Our increases have been lower than the co-op. I think Bill can attest to this, had been for years since I had been commissioner. Getting switched over was a haul. We had to meet with a lot of the employees, so I don't take any of this lightly. My concern is that I don't want Prime Health to think that we're leaving them without legitimate reasons to do that, because they worked hard. I will tell you that their administration, if they save any money anywhere, it's in administration compared to when you go to these bigger companies. Do you agree with me, Andrew? Are you agreeing with what I'm saying here?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't compared their
Well,
cost to others.
that's my opinion. I've only been to one meeting, but listening to husband. And the way this came up kind of was Renville Hospital left. I think you heard Commissioner Hausman talk about that. And so they need to pay because they didn't get proper notice. And so now there's been some debate about how that's gonna happen. And I think at the last meeting, I think it's gonna be cordial and be an ending. So although I'm not opposed to this, I was surprised to see it in here. I thought maybe we'd do a work session on it. If Candy and the other counties get into, approved by the Prime West Board, there's a good chance they might come to Prime West Health, which will make the pool larger, which is of course a good thing. So I'm not giving an opinion one way or the other. I encourage Andrew also to talk to Matt. He's only been to one meeting. I've only been to one meeting, but I'm just gonna reiterate that we were on the ground floor, as you know, Bill, of trying to get them to do this. They worked hard to do it. And I think they're doing a good job. They had a couple big claims, which Commissioner Hausman, I think that's kind of been, Andrew, do we get the idea that's kind of been solved now? With their reinsurance and.
I mean, there's always a possibility with.
Right, but
with
those
big
two cases that were causing,
Right, that is correct.
right?
Yes.
Am I right?
Yep, and they
So-
have actually lasered those out, which means that
Right,
we've still paid for those, but
but they've lasered them out
Yeah.
now, is that the word? So so you're in contact with Matt often?
Oh yeah. And don't get me wrong, they're great to work with, that's not the issue. The issue is just, and Matt even agreed that they need to change that language.
And I think that will be a discussion, because I think when they put it in initially, it made sense, cause you couldn't have all of this together and then next year somebody say, well, I've decided I'm not gonna be in it.
Right.
But maybe the out clause can be changed, or what, I agree with that, but I just wanna say I think we need to tread lightly here. That's
Yeah,
all.
and
That's all I'm saying.
I would just, one question, and I believe, them settlements that were causing issue have been settled, just payments ain't done or finished yet. The other piece is, how many counties, wasn't there 7 counties that wanted to join that
And that's what,
Well,
that wanna get on Prime West Board, that for the county purchasing, and hopefully that'll be happening in the next year. That's been put on the back burner.
we're waiting for state approval.
Right.
Yeah, the state was fighting,
Yeah.
but I believe, and maybe this ain't a fair assumption, that that's not a if, it's a when type situation.
That's my understanding as
That's-
well. Yeah.
That's the way we,
I think so, we
Yeah.
hope so. I think it's taking longer than they thought it would. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue there was the state went out and did a procurement for
Right.
Medicaid services, and there were some issues that came up with it. The state pulled the procurement, now they're going back out again. It was under a different administration the last time they did it, so we'll see what the state does with this procurement. But yeah, I mean, that has a possibility of drastically impacting Prime West for either in a very positive or in a very negative way, depending on how that
They,
goes.
I mean, certainly the hope is they come to the board meetings for Prime West and so I just think they hope, my hope then is they'll come to Prime Health. They don't have to,
Right.
but there would be an opportunity to grow,
You know, absolutely, and with any pool, the more members you have to share the risk, the better off that you are. So basically, what my advice is for you all to think about is when we get closer to that time, you know, if we're comfortable and we're happy with being there and we're willing to re-up for another 5 years, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But also, you know, through state statute, we are required to go out every 5 years for bid as well. Now, as being a part of a self-insured pool, which basically is what we are, they'll do that for us. So right now, as an example, the Prime Health group is with Preferred One. So to give you an example, if they would go out for bids, they would get bids from United Healthcare, from Health Partners, from
Blue
Medica,
Cross,
from Blue Cross. As a matter of fact, the service cooperative that we used to be a member of just announced that after over 30 years relationship with Blue Cross Blue Shield, effective January 1 of 2022, they are moving to Medica.
That might have been better news for me had they done it a few years ago, since our rates were 10-12% every year, and no good explanation, in my opinion, so.
So, what I'm suggesting is that I work with Andrew and Mikkel, and I'd like to reignite the insurance committee that we used to have this last year with COVID. It's been tough to do that. But I'd like to get an insurance committee back up and running again, made up of members of the staff in each department, to start discussing, you know, find out how people are feeling about the insurance. I have to tell you, we get a few complaints, but we always get them handled right away. I mean, there's no big issues that are out there. So I think the main thing is just to get an understanding on what we can and can't do, because we certainly do not want to jeopardize this.
No, and I don't, you know,
As you said, our position.
news travels, and I don't really care to even think that we're having a serious, not a serious discussion. That's why I've encouraged Andrew also to get a hold of Matt. And I think if we wait and see, I mean, I understand, but we don't want to route a bunch of, this was a long haul getting here, as you can attest to.
It was a 3-year project.
It was a 3-year project, getting employees on board, many meetings, I was to many of them. Matt was there, you were there, Bernick was there. So I just think we want to kind of lay a little low with this, and can we see what happens at the June meeting? If they change this wording, I'm gonna have a feeling that we're not the only original county that's maybe gonna think that it's time for a change with that wording. I mean, it kind of makes sense, so. I kind of thought maybe we'd be doing a work session. I have no reason to believe the rates are gonna go up more than that, but I mean, you don't know. But what was our increase last year? 3.2, that was the best we've done for a long time, so.
And the way that process is working, when the pool was originally put together, the goal was to get every county at the same rate level over the 7-year period of time.
That's what they would like to do, but that's tough.
So some counties, we came in with higher rates than other counties did. So we've been getting lower increases, other counties have been getting higher as we're moving toward that 7-year target to get everybody to, because the plans are all, you know, we can't pick and choose different plan designs, same way with PEEP. You know, these are the set plans, but they want to get everybody to that same rate level. At least that's the goal.
I got a quick question about PEEP. They seem to be more willing to take people on than what I understood they were a few years ago. Is that true, or was I just not understanding it properly?
Well, PEEP is a public entity.
Right.
So whatever the state does, so PEEP is a state-run program. If you know anybody that works for the state of Minnesota, they're under what's called the CGIP, the State Employees Insurance Group. So the state mandates the plans, the state determines if there's any deviation, they're the ones that make that decision. Then PEEP follows whatever the state's decisions are. So PEEP over the years, they've been around since the 70s, they've gained members, they've lost members. like any group, what's happened, and it happens with any co-op or large group, after a while, if there are some groups that are having good experience and they're not, but the rates keep going up because they're helping to pay for others, that's what happened with the service co-op,
Yeah.
that's what's happened with PEEP in the past, it could certainly happen
Sure.
with Prime Health.
It could.
That's why it's important that groups have the option to at least go out and look, every 5 years if they can. PEEP has been growing.
But were they always willing to take on people because?
They have to take any
So they do
public
have to.
sector. By state law, if you're a city of 2, or you're a county of 500, or you're a school district of 5,000, like they just brought on, the school districts in St. Paul just joined PEEP. They have no option. They're the only carrier in the state of Minnesota that if no other carriers give you a bid, they have to. By state law, they have to. Now, the rate might be higher than you wanna pay, but there are some cities, there's some schools as an example, that just couldn't get bids. Their claims were so out of whack that other carriers didn't want them, so they had no other choice but to go to PEEP.
PEEP has taken on, like CCT for instance, their insurance rate went way up and they went a couple of years ago and got much better, but now see this year it went up a little bit more, so.
Yeah, and this is the first year in over 10 years that PEEP had a double digit.
They had a
been in
bigger
that
increase than we did, that's
3-5%.
unusual, they're kinda,
9.7?
yeah.
Yeah, this year was a 9.7, and
That's where, that used to be completely reversed,
yeah.
so I'm just saying, I hope we tread lightly here, I think Andrew knows what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. They've been good for us, they've worked hard to get there, they're a good bunch, Jim does a good job, Matt does a good job, I think you'll attest to that.
Yep, I work with them all.
So I don't wanna rattle any chains.
No, and I had, prior to meeting with Andrew and Mikkel, I had a good, it was a Zoom call with Matt, and both he and I are in agreement that it's not, we're not saying that we're not happy or we don't wanna be, and we're just saying that we need better understanding.
Better wording probably
what this
would save a
means, so
lot.
we know that we can.
So after June, we'll know more about that, obviously. And in the meantime, are you gonna reach out a little bit to Matt? Good.
Couple things that, I'm new to this in terms of the county's way, and I have no problem with Prime Health, as I talked to you before, but a couple things. Why is it a 5-year commitment, plan, where it kinda gives them a captive supply of a group of individuals? Why is it advantageous to the county to be part of that 5-year plan? And also, why, I would think it'd be prudent to find, just to seek out to see if there is any financial differences in other institutions that might be, better suited for the county too. I'm not saying, hey, let's all move because I know it's impossible, it's a long task, et cetera, and you don't wanna be moving from insurance company to insurance company because they change each time. But I do think it's, the county does have is prudent to find other options to look for comparison reasons. Other than, in the 5-year plan, I'm just confused in terms of that. What was the advantage for the county to doing that?
Well, I don't know if it's so much an advantage to the individual county, but it was to the advantage of the overall group. It was designed to keep people from, just getting in 1 year and we've got a good rate and now we're gonna bail. Because that just hurts a group when that happens.
Yeah,
So
because we started from the ground up, Danny, so we had to have, so these people that were coming in, we had to make sure, as Bill said, that they weren't gonna the next year leave. I never thought this 5-year thing was gonna be forever, I thought we were gonna have a 5-year agreement to get established, cause we were in essence creating our own, insurance.
Co-op.
Cover
You're
our
creating
own
a co-op.
That's a better rate.
Yeah.
So that's why we needed, and I don't know, did the co-op we left have a agreement like that when it was started? They just went from year to year, so
Well-
people were bailing because when prices start going up, because if you don't have the healthy stay with the bad, that's what you have, no matter where you go.
Back in the day, when the co-ops were first approved by the state of Minnesota, they did have, you couldn't even look if they even heard that you were out for bids, they could kick you out of the,
Right.
out of the co-op. Well, that lasted until about, and I'm going off memory here, somewhere around 2004 or 2005. And actually it was the Education Minnesota Teachers Union that really drove that. They got state law passed that said the insurance providers or co-ops could no longer do that. They could not handcuff a group. So then what the co-ops did was they changed their language to say, we need advance notice if you're gonna look.
Right.
But then we want the right to be able to relook as well. So in other words, if a group came back and said, look, we can get these rates from XYZ company, it gave them the opportunity to relook at the group and say, okay, we want to offer. Because also back in those days, insurance companies were just buying business too.
Right.
That doesn't happen much anymore today because of the high cost. They're not interested in doing that anymore. They're all now looking at long-term relationships as well. So, but the 5-year contract was a blockade for a lot of the groups that were looking at coming into Prime Health. And actually, some of the groups still are, because there are other groups that can look, even, they don't have to be a member of Prime West to join the Prime Health Board. They just have to be a public entity. And that's one of the issues that always comes up is they're a little cautious.
And that's why I'm hoping they'll have some language change. I did understand it when we first started, but I don't understand it anymore.
Madam Chair, if I may shed some light on Commissioner Schiefelbein's question about the 5 years. We had that discussion as a whole board and specifically talked about, was the 5 years appropriate? How are we gonna know? What if we go in too deep and it's not gonna work? How do we get the out? I think the direction that we were given kind of from the county administrator at that time is you're gonna need at least the 4 years, which is, you're gonna know in the 4 years.
Right.
And to give that notice is fair because we don't want others in that pool jumping out. And so we had a hefty conversation in 2017, I think, when we started this. So that was something we did specifically discuss.
We did have a lot of discussion about it, but it made perfect sense at the time because you can have people jumping in and out. But that's why I think in June, this language could easily change.
Yeah, and I'm saying, just from a business standpoint, you're not hopping 1 year to another from insurance company. The only reason I'd ever question Prime West is when I got the insurance for a commissioner, our family policy was almost the same as the county policy, almost verbatim. You got to pick your places to go, high deductible is what I chose. And the county policy was 50% higher than our family policy that we were paying out. And that's why I actually ended up contacting Paul Vernig, then he gave me Bill's number. And that's why I started questioning, I'm going, how can that be the same? Because our pool is probably fairly similar to the counties in terms of age. My oldest brother in the pool would be 63 down to 24 or so. And I'm like, how, with that same pool comparison, how could our policy, being a smaller batch, which, we're relatively healthy, be 50% lower than the county batch? And that's the only reason why I ever questioned and called Bill up asking what about Prime Health and how that fits into it. I'm not saying there's another option out there, but I'm just saying, just from real world comparison from mine to the county, I'm just like going, why is there a difference there? Because 50% is pretty significant.
I think I could answer that. That'd be because you guys gotta eat Thanksgiving dinner together.
Oh, yeah. We don't all eat it together every day. Christmas, yes.
Well, and as I explained, there's a difference in the way that the health insurance laws are now. In the state of Minnesota, the small group market is all age rated. It doesn't matter what your claims history is, it's all age rated. In the large group market that we're in, it's all claims driven and claims rated. So when we initially came into the Prime Health pool, as an example, Renville County, just down the road a ways, they basically had the same plan designs we did, but their rates were about 30% lower than ours. And it was just because they had some good luck. They had lower claims over the years. So one of the things that I have also requested, is can they relook at our demographics at some point when we're in this pool? You know, will they relook at that and take a new snapshot and say, okay, the demographics have changed, some of the high cases are gone, so maybe we need to reboot this group, you know, and take a look at it. And that's basically what happens when you do an RFP. Because when you do an RFP, all the carriers look at your most recent 24-month history. That's what they give you the rate based off of. So it doesn't matter what happened 10 years or 15 years ago, because that history is gone. Where we're at now, that history has always followed us. You know, none of those claims went away.
All right. So.
Is it a major factor when negotiating that we're certain whichever health insurance company we go with, that they work hand in hand with our clinics, our hospital, our local providers here within Litchfield and Meeker County?
Good question. Part of the RFP is the insurance companies have to agree to match our benefits and our networks. So yes, and that not only for doctors and hospitals, but that also follows suit with RX medications as well.
Very good. I would think that would be a huge determining factor.
And that could influence that premium rate too, part of that difference too, depending on.
Well,
between.
our policy is exact same. You can go to anywhere. There is no one excluded. Like PEEP, you are excluded unless you have a referral, right, or something?
Right, PEEP is managed care, which is an HMO, and we're still the PPO, which is preferred, as long as we go to a preferred provider, which means if preferred one has a contract with them, then we can go to any doctor we want to.
That's called the within network providers?
Correct.
Okay.
So what is, Andrew?
We're just looking for general direction today, and what I've heard is that we want to see what happens at the June Prime Health Board meeting with regard to any changes in the contract language. I'm going to reach out to Matt to discuss the kind of what they anticipate being the future of Prime Health and any potential growth opportunities there. And then as we get a little bit later in the year, we'll further have this conversation based on what happens at the June meeting and seeing how those changes may be made, and we can continue to see by the end of the year, hopefully, a roadmap of what we may want to do in 2022.
I think it'd be helpful if we get further along with these counties that are joining Prime West too. Hopefully we'll know more. I don't know soon, I hope. I don't know. Are they looking at another year now?
I don't recall what they'd said at the
I
time.
don't either. That's a massive meeting to go to.
Yeah.
Takes a while.
Question on that, when they join then, is it automatically gonna be making them more competitive, or do they really need to know what those counties' pools are in terms of like if they have a bunch of big claims, does that actually hurt it? I mean, you know, I don't know, I'm just asking.
That's
Go
a good
ahead.
question, because they can't, so initially what they'll do is they'll join Prime West.
Right.
Which is their Medicare and Medicaid services. That's a done deal, we're just waiting for state approval, which I'm being told it's gonna happen in 2023, that's supposed to happen. That could change. However, the Prime Health Board, which is made up of all the counties that are part of that, they have the sole discretion of allowing a group to come in or not. And they will use claims history to tell them that. They'll also look at size of group. So, one of the things that has hurt pools in the past is they've allowed way too many small groups in. Because when you need to pull money, you know, if your pool's in trouble and you need to pull money, your bigger groups are gonna be more able to come up with the money. But if you've got a city that's got 2 or 3 people and you try to raise their rates 20, 30%, it's just impossible.
See, that's what I think you're starting to see with PEEP, because you look at some of the boards I'm on, you're looking at 20, 30 people, 10 people, and they're taking them. I could be wrong, I don't know. But anyway.
Well, and doesn't that, I mean, I think you touched on that before though too, when a new county or somebody would enter, their rates would be different for, I mean, you rate them.
Right.
They're gonna pay more for the first 3-4 years than maybe Meeker or an existing county based until you get that playing field level again.
Right,
Is
and they
that
may even,
fair?
they may even assess an entry fee to
Yeah.
help make up some of that.
Well, I'm assuming they would do that one. I mean,
Well-
we all had an entry fee.
Yeah, and that clarification has not been made yet, but I know they're
That's
discussing
another
that.
thing that I
And
think would be important.
Yeah, that's something you're gonna wanna ask, because
Right.
that was talked about, that if they're gonna come in, there should be some skin in the game.
Absolutely, I agree, because we did. It's no matter, you know,
Yeah, it was a
Help build
substantial.
They would have to, because they have to raise that amount in case they would have to go back on the counties too. So there has to be skin in the game.
but Bill is right. The goal of this whole thing too, also when we started, was everybody paying the same instead of we were going here and there, which I don't know. Healthcare is so messy right now that.
Well, and then you have to legally keep your reserve pools at a certain
Certain
level, that's all
level.
state mandated.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of, things behind that you just, when you're managing a pool, the pool is much bigger than any one group, obviously, that's in it, so.
Which would go to what you just said, the reserve pool, if you're letting counties in, your reserve pool immediately increases. So they're gonna have to pay some type of,
It'll be,
That makes sense.
it'll be interesting to see what the discussion is in June.
You're on the Prime Health Board, right?
Andrew and
And
I.
Andrew?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cause there's Prime West too,
And
and
then
then.
Paul and I are on Prime
Yeah,
West, so I mean,
like going, I'm like-
it's like.
Make sure I get the right Prime
And
I'm
I've only
talking
been,
about.
yeah,
Good.
Prime Health is different, and I've only been to a couple meetings, so it takes a while to,
I didn't get it figured out until February.
Yeah.
there you go. So,
Well, and Mikkel's sitting over in the background quietly absorbing all this, and you work with, the employees on a daily basis. What, Prime Health, I mean, what are you seeing functionality, I mean, employee satisfaction, that side of a different perspective, but
I think each year in negotiations, we get asked by the Prime Health employees, well, what about PEEP? So they do look, they do talk to each other. I don't know if that's something that we'd ever consider, but that is a question that employees ask. I haven't really heard, honestly, a whole lot of pluses or negatives from the employees directly about either one. I did recently hear one person say that PEEP was too restrictive because they could only go to certain places. I did hear in the past, I haven't heard it recently, I heard in the past that Prime Health, the prescription on the family coverage was a little high, especially if they had some expensive prescriptions starting at the beginning of the year, which is also kind of why they started more of the non-HSA family plan, so that then employees that had those higher cost prescriptions at the beginning of the year could use that plan and they wouldn't have to pay out of pocket as much right away. I do think it's beneficial still to look, just because it also helps us with recruiting and retention, and all of those things all play into any of the benefits that we offer, and health insurance is such a big one that that's a lot of times what candidates are asking after I make the offer is, well, what does your benefits look like? Can you send me that? And then they're reviewing the health insurance. So I think it is an important thing. Not necessarily that we would even leave, but just to even just look.
well, that's why I'm just gonna go back to, let's see what happens in June. I agree that we have an obligation to the taxpayers to look, and when it first started, I know there was couple people didn't get their drugs taken care of, and I'm gonna tell you that Prime West, they stepped up and took care of it. So you have a much more personal, and I think there was a lot of skepticism, but I don't hear that from employees like I did the first year after we got it. So I think Prime West is certainly, or Prime Health, I gotta make sure I'm saying the right thing, is doing the best they can. So I think it'll just be a discussion and we'll see.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill, good seeing you.
Yeah, you too. Are you open for lunch now? Everything ready?
I had to close 2 days a week. I don't have enough staff. If you know anybody looking for work, send them my way. I think that's not gonna happen for a while.
Until they stop paying people not to.
There you go, you said it, Teddy.
So Bill was not seeking any action, he wasn't seeking a motion.
Information.
To inform us and kind of give him our blessings to continue to pursue potential options Not necessarily, of course, to move forward with any changes, but at least to do the research and keep us informed.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have our direction, so we're ready to move on to the next item.
Excellent. Andrew, you're next.
All right, the next item is appointment of a committee to vet our allocation of the COVID relief funds. As we are all aware, the American Rescue Plan Act was recently adopted by the federal government and includes billion dollars as a direct appropriation for counties. Of that, Meeker County is set to receive approximately $4.5 million. That's an estimate. The dollar amount could go in either direction from there, but it's what NACO had estimated. Over 2 payments, 12 months apart. First payment would come in the next few weeks or a couple months, and then the second payment would be 12 months after that. Those funds must be expended by the end of 2024, which is a much longer time frame than what we had with the CARES Act. There are some allowable uses that are identified in the bill, including expenses related to responding to the public health emergency, responding to workers performing essential work, making necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, and for the replacement or reduction of revenue under certain circumstances. Each of these will have rules developed for it by the U.S. Treasury Department, and we will have more details on exactly how that money can be spent. But basically what we're here looking for today is 2 things. First, I'm seeking authorization to be able to execute the necessary certification forms when they become available so we can actually get this money. And second, to appoint a committee to evaluate the most appropriate use of those funds, similar to what was done with the CARES Act money. My recommendation would be to use our existing budget committee members, which is Commissioner Schmidt and Schiefelbein, as well as myself, and then additionally with the county treasurer. With that, I'm available for any questions.
So, do we have to execute something to get the funds?
Likely we will, as we did with the last round with the CARES Act, we did have to execute.
Can we first ask if this is borrowed money or if this is actual money that the government has to hand out before we take it? I'm just being smart, but
this is direct appropriation, so it's not a loan.
It's all borrowed.
It's not a loan to us, but it's to somebody, isn't it,
Loan
Andrew?
from somebody. It's a loan from the future.
That was my question. So I think that it's a good idea to certainly have the same committee. You already know how to hand out money. That's a fun thing to do, isn't it, guys? Handing out money? That must be a fun part of your job. Huh? A lot of stress.
Big job.
We do all this at
I
once.
would entertain a motion.
So I'll make a motion that we authorize the county administrator to execute the necessary certification forms as well as keep the budget committee of Commissioners Schmidt, Schiefelbein, county administrator, and the county and treasurer as the committee, budget committee, the committee for the COVID.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I will second that motion, Madam Chair.
All right, we have a motion. And is there any discussion? Any questions or discussion? Hearing none. Corey, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Oberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion carries on both points. Andrew?
The next item that I have is something that I asked to be added to the agenda, and it'll be on here on every agenda, which is just a space for me to give a report. Typically, this will be updates on things that we may have talked about at previous meetings or things that don't necessarily require action. So I have 3 things for you today. First off, as attached is our monthly fund cash balances report, just for your information. The second is, if you recall back in January at our work session, we received a presentation from our Public Works Director regarding the intersection at CASA 34 and US 12 here in Litchfield and some potential improvements from there. After that meeting, Phil went and met with the city of Litchfield. They talked about some different options along with the engineering firm who the city was working with on it. And city had some ideas. Ultimately, their council wants to have a public meeting to discuss it, and they're going to invite county commissioners to attend as well. They're posting it as a public meeting, as a work session. If the entire county board is interested in going, we can post it as a meeting as well. Alternatively, we could have, you know, 2 or fewer members attend that meeting and participate in that discussion as well. So that meeting is going to happen on April 5th at 4:30 p.m. So I guess I'm looking for direction on this, of whether everyone would like to attend or we'd like to keep it to 2 or fewer.
Well, I think the invitation is for everyone, so,
Okay.
I guess we'll check our schedules. Will you send a reminder email?
Yeah, I'll send an email, and if you can let me know if you're interested in attending. If we hit 3, then we'll post it as a public meeting. No problem. And then the last thing I have, and probably stealing someone's thunder here, but yesterday the COVID Policy Committee met and decided that we have met all of the criteria to move to phase 4 in our recovery plan. And I sent an email out to the department heads yesterday informing them of this and asking them to start thinking about adjustments to their on-site staffing plans and how they're rotating that. Additionally, we're going to be opening up the one of the additional doors at the Family Services Center down at the south side of the building near the Veteran Service Office. And we already have 2 doors open here at the courthouse. So that is all that I have today. Thank you.
When I look at these, when I look at the monthly fund cash balances, it's always an interesting discussion that we have about how much money we should be keeping on hand. I've had it with the auditors in the past, so new commissioners maybe wanna just think about it. We've never really determined, but I always think we're hefty as we tax, so, or maybe not, I'm just saying.
And I think that having a specific policy that outlines what exactly we want to have in reserve is good practice, and is something that we can talk about as part of our budget process.
I agree, and we've never solved it. I think, Steve, you know, we've always talked about it, and we do this now more on every board I'm on too. I'm on boards that have a lot of money, and should you? Is that the right thing to do? So.
Well, and I think, right in the last year with the way, the uncertainty and trying to project what's coming, what's going.
And you know, who knew how much the government was gonna give them? These CARES funds too, well, the hospital, I don't know if you can answer this, but I wonder if there will be something available for them. These vaccination clinics are costing a lot of money.
Yes.
So that's something you can maybe work with, Kurt, I don't know if there'll be something available for them.
So I know that the act had money in there for vaccine distribution. I don't know, or I don't know exactly how that piece is breaking out. I believe, and someone who was here can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we gave the hospital some CARES money for a couple of different projects.
Yes, we did, 400.
Yeah, I can't remember the amount.
Yeah. And so certainly, working with the hospital to cover some of their costs for vaccines would be I believe, an appropriate use for the money that we are getting, so
I think
that
we
is
talked
certainly one of
about,
the things we can take a look at.
I think it's like $1,500 an hour in salaries and we did one a week ago Friday again, they got 200 extra vaccines and so just keep it in mind.
I think another thing that I've read, you know, schools were on the list too through CARES Act, and basically they weren't a target of that, but my understanding is that through this rescue plan, the schools are in that.
They're getting a lot of money from what I've heard.
Yeah, that they will be, so I mean,
schools
that answers the question that we weren't able to answer with CARES Act, and that's been part of the problem. I think I was saying that to Danny earlier. I mean, the rules come out
after the money.
Weeks and months after yours.
But that wouldn't be the county money though, would it?
No.
That would
That's
be.
that's separate direct.
This one was,
There's also direct appropriation for cities and townships as well, based on the National League of Cities data. I think, if I recall properly, and this may have been an earlier version, so it may have changed a little bit, but the cities and townships in Meeker County at that time were slated to get about $2.5 million in addition to the county share.
So they did last time too, and then a lot of them gave it back to the county too.
Not a lot, but a
some did, huh?
portion.
I know one gave to the hospital.
That was Kingston, cause we couldn't spend it all. We
Right.
couldn't find it enough.
So now you're gonna have more to spend.
It wasn't near $2.5 million.
Last
No,
time?
it was 2.8 total.
Total for all the
Township, city, and county
Our
was
township
2.8.
had 35,000 or something.
2.8.
It was
2.8.
a lot, yeah. For all the townships
all,
together.
all of Meeker County and the cities and the townships all combined.
Okay, but what, Andrew just said, it was 2.5 for just cities and
Exactly.
townships.
A rescue plan, yeah.
Yeah.
In
It's
the new plan?
That's a lot more money.
rough numbers, the CARES Act was $75 per capita, and this is $185
Yeah.
per cap, rough. I mean, that's a ballpark. It's it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Andrew, do you request any action?
Nope.
From the board today?
Not at all. That concludes my report. So we're on to.
I very much appreciate this addition to the agenda, to have a time within each meeting for you to give an administrator's report. I thought that was an excellent idea. Very good. All right. Anything else for us, Andrew?
I do not have anything.
Okay. Then I move on to the Board of Commissioners Committee report update. Anyone want to begin, or should we start with District 1? Who did we decide was in District 1?
I think it's still me, but unless something's changed. So what did I have here? We had our security meeting, Andrew and Paul were also at that. I think we kind of decided that we would do what we could immediately, moving the mailbox and some different things, getting some quotes for some key cards, planters, to add some more planters, the easy things, and then the rest we kind of put on hold until we move farther into the building stuff. I also had a CHB meeting. We went over our expense reports. They did some reports on vaccines. Then we went over the community health assessment. That's something that this one started in 2019. Then it goes through the years, you find your needs, and it's different stages. It's, our top priorities, I believe, were mental health, obesity, and alcohol, tobacco rates in the counties. So that'll be submitted to the state for certification, and then the next part takes over. That was that. Julie was there too, so maybe she's got other things. The other meeting I had, I'm on the Meeker childcare team. Andrew, you were on that call too. That was just kind of housekeeping, I guess, to figure out what teams were gonna be where. Provider Appreciation Day is May 7th. We talked about that, doing appreciation for the daycare workers. I'm looking into trying to get them some help with some trainings through the hospital. And I think that's about all I had, so.
Going late on us, huh?
I am.
All right. Well, we started out with an AIS meeting, after the last commissioners meeting, aquatic invasive species. It was, a meeting where they're trying to decide how to best get the word out on some of these, regulations such as, and I'm just gonna give you a quick example. If somebody pulls a boat lift out of the lake, it can't go into another lake, a different lake, for a period of time. Well, nobody knows this. You put it out by the road, somebody buys it, they haul it to their lake and dump it in. Now, what did they drag with it on that boat that they weren't aware of? So we talked a little bit about that. They talked about possibly getting a master list of lake owners so that they could distribute some of this information, creating this list. So that was one of the things on there. I'm gonna be kind of frank on this. I think that our AIS person gets 28 hours a week. We have the tools that I think they could probably create that list, without us going in here and trying to dig that data out of one of the other departments, giving them extra work. So, other than that, we had the Prime West training last
Oh, I forgot about that.
Thursday, which
That was a long one too.
that was a long one. Started at 11:30 in the morning and went till what, 4:30, 4 o'clock,
I think it was about 3:30.
3:30?
Crap.
I lost the part I waited for, and
hours.
then I lost my internet. I didn't see the last part, so.
The one thing that just, it resonated with me and it stuck, is when they were talking about when somebody calls in to get information. They get a voice from the very beginning. They don't get an automated dial-in system. Please press 1, please press 6, please press this. They get to talk to a voice. And I don't know about you guys, but that's pretty darn big to me. And I would think it would be awfully big.
They are
for the people.
really a well-oiled machine, aren't they? And he has done, they have got rid of departments and combined when employees have quit. I just think their administration and I think they do very, very well, the administration end of things.
And I agree with Beth fully. Then we had a PAC meeting, and that was on Wednesday. It was their annual meeting, but we also had the, they call it the CEO, the chief elected officials, where we're the ones who vote on the budget. We do it twice a year. They have 2 meetings, one in March and one in November. And it's very, very, very important that the CEOs are there. And there is one thing that we don't have, and that's an alternate on our committee for PACT. And say, for example, in November, if for some reason I can't be there, they need to positively have a quorum in November. It may be something that as a board we want to consider just naming an alternate and getting it on there.
We used to have it. At one time it was Huberty and I, and then I made him the full-time and I was the alternate, so.
But-
We have always had an alternate, cause I think that has been an issue at times when they needed the voting members there, they didn't have a quorum.
So I would ask that we consider an appointment as an alternate. And we get that so that we can forward that over to them and they can list it on their official documents so that they can always have a quorum when they need it to pass these things. We've already talked yesterday, we had the, policy meeting, but Andrew already addressed that, so, that's about it. Tonight I have a ProWorks meeting, but that doesn't count yet.
Do you wanna address that PACT 4 right now and be done with it?
Could just as well. maybe.
We're all 5 here.
Please
Julie,
do.
you can hear us, right?
I can hear you.
What happens
I
when
may
you're
not
not in,
acknowledge you.
what happens when you're not in attendance is you get nominated for stuff. I've noticed that a lot.
I'd sit in on PACT 4 as an alternate.
You're a good man, Steve.
I mean, I'm familiar.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion on this? Our volunteer, Commissioner Schmidt, to serve? Any discussion or questions? Let's take a roll call.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Oberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you so much, Steve.
And do you, Corey, notify PAC, or you want me to, or?
You can notify them and then I'll just update the spreadsheet.
Just really thought you were out, right?
Well, alternate ain't bad.
He was on it the last 2 years, so.
Yeah, I know. I
it
said,
comes
just
down
when
to
you're,
that.
That
just
was
when you got out.
that was the one
Pull you
thing.
back in.
I never got an
I
alternate.
really struggled to fill that one the day we did that downstairs.
I know.
I never had an alternate.
But if I may
It
finish on PAC, this year, on their budget, they are concerned with how things are going, so, the budget is going to be shrank this year. They're not going to give as many grants as they did, just simply because they wanna see what the future's gonna bring.
If I remember right,
Makes
they had a
sense.
huge reserve. They were one of those I was talking about.
They
What I
have,
thought was a very large reserve.
They have-
That's a few years ago that I was on.
just right around $2 million, but their 6-month cost of doing operation is just over $1 million. So they could chew through half of that in 6 months, just in their
They
operating
have a year then,
expenses.
they have a year reserve.
Yep.
That's pretty good for an organization.
I know Paul Bukovic always speaks highly of the collaboration between PAC 4 and social services.
And Diane does sit on the exec.
And Diane there.
All right, I had a EDA meeting with Steve the other night, and main push was different EDA goals as far as what we should really be promoting, which is I'm still trying to figure that out in terms of my own beliefs and stuff, because it's sometimes it goes counterproductive of what I think should naturally happen, but we have to figure out whether it should be housing, what should we be focusing the EDA on as far as highlighting, what we should be, what our entity should be going after as far as in the Meeker County to help, if you will. They also discuss getting a collaboration with a marketing media company, which they wanted to possibly, I think it was it 20,000 for a 2-year thing that we
I believe, yes.
that
it
we
was
held
20.
off for now, and their group was supposed to be pinpointing employees for employers in Meeker County, and we kind of tabled it, so to speak, until we actually saw their track record, because
So you wanna hire an outside company to do what?
basically what they're supposed to be doing is trying to focus and pinpoint employees for employers in Meeker County.
Oh.
Trying to help, like with, say Bobcat's expansion and stuff, where there's a need for workers, and then trying to,
Well, isn't
how
that
can
what-
EDA play
Isn't that why we belong to Central Minnesota Jobs and Training, don't they do that?
That's a piece of it, but they're looking at a marketing.
After seeing that discussion, that's the first thing I thought of, is like, well, we already have someone already on our staff. So I was pretty lukewarm about it, because the different marketing.
We all were.
Yeah.
So you haven't, so it's just.
No, but it was brought up to our attention.
And some of these things were past items. It was kind of a readdressing, sorry, Danny.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
It was readdressing old targeted, housing was a target a couple of years ago. And that was kind of to readdress, are we gonna continue to push it? How are we doing with housing? We do have some good things going in housing in the county, but, daycare was another one that's been brought up. And that I haven't heard much about through EDA, so that's something we're gonna look at. But then there was a marketing piece, which I think was talked about prior, in the years past.
Oh.
And, so that was basically, we filled out a rating sheet, and marketing was one of the things on there. But we basically take that.
I always struggle with those marketing dollars, so.
That's pretty
kinda
much
how I
what
am.
You gotta
it's-
have them targeted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise,
Pretty
you're just flushing possible money, especially for employees, for employers. Because if the employers can't find it, who's to say EDA will be able to do a better job?
And trying to, basically, it was trying to get employers to understand that EDA is there too, with some
Right.
funding sources and things like that. It's probably targeted more towards employers, but, for right now, we thought maybe we can do a better job of that in-house, and maybe the relationship between EDA and CMJTS is where we need to.
That's
partnering that up a little better.
After watching the presentation, I feel like that'd be a better synergy than maybe anything else, since they're already on,
Yep.
in the system,
I always wonder with EDA if people are aware of the dollars, if they wanna start a little business, which is kinda what, I know when I first became a commissioner, that was kinda, they would get a low interest loan to get them through or whatever, and are we getting the word out well enough on that?
That's kind of where they were going with that, the marketing piece. That's, that maybe we work on that,
Do
but
people know, do the banks know that it's available? I mean, there's a place called Litchfield Industries too that's got money, but I don't know if people are aware, and I don't know if you need a marketing campaign for, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know where that originated. Like I said, I think it was back a year or two, and it just kind of, do you want to touch
Resonated
on
back
that or
up.
not? And we kind of
Resurrected.
said, let's do some more research before we.
I think that's a good
that
idea.
path.
Looking at this thing here, it said, worked in the county of residence, and we're just talking about Meeker County now. 53% work in Meeker County. 46% of the people whose residences in Meeker County leave the county to go to work.
Yeah, it's because of higher wages, period.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's what you're fighting against in terms of that. So it's like, how do you get, I mean, you're struggling with that as a,
Absolutely.
and I don't know how we figure it out, cause for me,
think-
it's very complex. It's more than that. Plus, it's like, you know, sometimes in my mind, I feel like the EDA sometimes could actually almost be competing with the regular Joe out there too.
That's
to
not
some
the first time that's been brought up either. There's,
That's why I'm struggling at this point, trying to get my feet.
We had
wet
that
in terms
discussion
of that.
too, like with daycares, that we don't want do things that are, you're helping daycare in general, but you're competing against an in-home daycare. You know, I mean, we gotta be careful.
the centers are now, there's another thing, I think they said there's 3 new in-home daycares coming around and one in Eden Valley, so some of these things are getting done without anybody's help, you know? And they're getting some grants right now through COVID, there's just some things happening, it's a unique time because of all the federal money and state money that's coming down the pipe too.
And when I say what I say, I'm just saying my own personal thing.
No, I
I'm
agree.
struggling a little bit, trying to figure out what I think, me personally think their role should be, because I don't want them competing, but maybe enhancing it somehow, and I don't know yet.
And I've always kind of viewed EDA as, you know, being, when you have a area like daycares have been short for a number of years, that was a big topic. And to address that issue, but then kind of like the apartments from years ago, you owned them for 20 years, then sell them off privately and let that function on its own, which now has developed into the same buyer of those apartments is building more apartments. To, you know, and EDA is helping with that, but at the same time, you brought that new money into the county to invest into the county and to build into the county. So I don't think EDA, in my view,
Right.
again, too, is that we don't put money in that's, and then we own it forever.
No, and
You
I
know,
think,
I mean, that.
I think that
It helps.
you don't
fill
wanna
a-
that's where you're in competition, when you own those apartments as those townhomes, as long as we owned them, I think selling them was a great decision on EDA's part. But helping some people build more if we need the housing, I think that's all well, but I don't think we should ever own property. I don't think government should be owning property.
Well, and if we fill a slump, if there's a
Right.
slump in your local economy, I always felt that that's where EDA should be working to fill that infrastructure piece to get that going again.
I think
Right.
that
That's
if
my
people
view.
wanna start a small business and and they're quality people, and that's what I think should be helpful. You know, if I wanna, whatever I wanna start, that I'd be able to come to you for a low interest loan or for whatever. I think that's an important part of EDA, that's how you get businesses going. And we've done other things with, different factories over the years where, you know, and they've employed a lot of people, like the rubber plant out here, and they're decent jobs, and EDA helped them, so I think that's kinda what you
Yeah,
wanna do.
yeah.
But bear in mind, we can create all these jobs, or we have all these jobs, but we don't have places for people to live
Yeah.
in Meeker.
And that's where there's a lot of housing. I mean, just,
Exactly.
I got a list here, Watkins, that one's under construction right now. It's a 20-unit project. That identical project will be happening in Eden Valley, same owner. Lumber One has the houses outside of town. They got 2 of them sold already. I think the other 2 are just about sold out of the 4. They're gonna do another 4. Greg Schilling has a 36 rental unit project that he's working on. That's a little farther down the road. And then the same Watkins, Eden Valley, gentleman who bought the original apartments, he's got a 76 unit plan for Litchfield that he's moved through.
Good.
I mean, it's taken a couple of years, but he's getting closer too. So there's a lot of housing that is in the pipeline. One thing I thought that was brought up too on housing, the UCAP homes are gonna be 3 in Litchfield and affordable housing units 2 in Eden Valley. And talking to UCAP's Tiffany over there, the prevailing wage has been a problem, which surprised me. In Meeker County, it's $54 an hour. Prevailing wage, and it's shooting their estimates way out of whack. And when I talk to contractors, they're telling me that usually their guys don't wanna work prevailing wage jobs in Meeker County because they're way too cheap. So I haven't been able to find out what's accurate there.
Big difference.
Yeah, so.
And then there was a, board resignation too for basically Watkins area
Yeah.
that we need to fill. And I also went to the Kingston Annual Township meeting and, heard a lot of snow plowing complaints, so.
Gee,
kinda
that's
regretted-
unusual, Danny. I bet you were surprised.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like going, why am I going to the meeting when I know what's the
You know what
result?
they're gonna talk about.
Yeah, I felt a little politician-ish.
That's scary.
Exactly. That really made me feel my skin crawl. That's
Love
all
it.
I got there. So I tried to field some questions and said, hey, we're working on it.
Did they mention going on their own?
Not
That's
so
how
much. Once upon a time they did, but like now Dassel, I'll be honest, the first snowfall, I had 2 residents of Dassel Township call and complain about different road conditions there. And I think their contractor is leaving them now.
So were they talking about the Casas though, or the township roads?
Township roads. Because there was,
You.
well, there was, that 1 8-inch snowfall, there's some communication issues there, I think. A couple guys were let off. The primary guy was had vacation. The secondary guy had vacation that was overlapping. So the township roads didn't get plowed at all until the next day. And actually, 1 road was missed too, because then you had to have a backup to the backup to the backup to it.
That certainly is an area complaint every year, so.
But
now we
I was
live with
like,
that.
there's only 2 options, and it's like, you either have to pay more, which is gonna raise your taxes. And I was like, those are the options you have, because I don't know any other options other than maybe merging different jobs and making another snowplower out of someone existing
So
now.
did they lose their guy that they were using before Dassel? Cause they were the first township to go on their own.
Right, it was Lindbergh is the guy they had, and his sons are not as enthused
Oh.
about it, so they may be losing him.
I heard a lot of good things when they started out about how happy they
Oh
were
yeah,
with the
so did I,
service.
but I feel like, it's
Yeah.
a tasking job, and the younger you are, sometimes the less likely they
You're
want
not as
to.
hungry, maybe.
Exactly. So I'll leave that alone, so that's all I got there, so.
All right, well, we pretty much covered EDA. We do have a board vacancy, Watkins, our EDA board member there is still Watkins' address, but he actually moved into Stearns County side of the line, so we do have an opening from the Watkins area, so if anybody knows anybody up in that area that would, want to serve on the EDA board, we would welcome that.
Who was
That
on there
will be
before?
posted. Dennis Locke.
And he quit, huh?
He bought a little farm site outside it, and he's across the county line.
Oh, he moved.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so. And then, the other thing, CMJTS, we pretty much covered that. One thing I did wanna point out on there, and I was gonna ask Barb about it, but I forgot, but there's a workforce development fund, and there's been a lot of, this is pretty common theme. Everybody pays into this every county pays into this workforce development fund, but 75% of the funds end up in the metro area. And that's an issue that we're trying to address. And I'm sure that'll be ongoing. Other than that, we had EOC policy committee, Andrew touched on that. And then, at the Emergency Services Board's, first of 3 strategic planning sessions yesterday. So that's kind of an ongoing, just kind of identifying areas, that we should be putting legislatively pushing forward or working with, so. And that's all I've got.
Okay, I'm next. Yes, Paul mentioned that on Wednesday, the 3rd, we had the Aquatic Invasive Species Committee meeting. Discussion included a lot of preparation as to how things were going to be handled at the landing sites now for spring. Landing stations for boaters to clean their boats and so on. They're going to be offering something called a bait bag, which boaters can use to dispose of their bait after they leave the lake. They're going to be erecting some signs with information, great big wooden signs, and the Rotary Club is going to help do some of the volunteer to help build those signs, about 6 or 7 of them. And Paul mentioned, and I did not know this, if you sell a piece of lake property, it's supposed to stay out of the water for 21 days before it's put into another body of water, and nobody knows that kind of information. So they're purchasing this decontamination machine, which we voted on to the tune of a little over $18,000. I believe it's going to be stationed at Lake Minnabell for the summer. So if someone does purchase a dock, a boat, they can go to this decontamination machine and up the, they wouldn't have to leave their piece of equipment out of the water then for 21 days. But how do we get that information out to people? Paul did mention that there are potentially some resources for getting a list of property owners. Ariana was going to contact Barb Locke to see if she could get a list of lake property owners for a potential future mailing, and I don't know if she's done that yet. So they're also going to be working closely with the lake associations. That would be an easy way to get a mailing list. Then on Friday the 5th, I attended the Minnesota Rural Counties meeting. In January, the rural counties had a group of speakers that presented in opposition to what is called the proposed Clean Cars Act. Then on Friday the 5th, they had speakers who spoke in favor of Minnesota adopting the Clean Cars Act. In 2024, the Clean Cars Act would be projected to begin. This is in compliance with emissions goals that were set back when Pawlenty was governor. And at that time, they had a target date of 2030. Electric cars was the primary topic of discussion. I found it very interesting because now we have an electric car charging station right across the street from the courthouse. I was left, however, with a lot of questions. What do the electric co-ops think of people charging their cars on off-peak electric during the night? What does it cost at our Central Park to actually charge your car? How is that payment made? What are the opinions of local car dealers? What's the availability of actually getting an electric car in Meeker County? What does it cost? And how does that equate to a tank full of gas? What are some government incentives for purchasing an electric vehicle? What's the difference between, this was a big one for me, and I haven't gotten an answer yet, but what's the difference between emissions coming out of my car and the emissions from a coal-powered electric plant to produce the electricity to charge my car? So those are some questions that I had. And then the final big question, a lot of the people on the committee, commissioners and such, how will road maintenance taxes be collected from an electric vehicle, because now our roads are maintained through gas tax? They talked about batteries, what happens when a car is retired. Those batteries are difficult and expensive to recycle. And one tidbit of information I thought was interesting, last year in Norway, of all the new cars sold in 2020, 54% of them were electric cars. So Norway's really on the bandwagon, but they get a lot of government incentives to purchase electric cars.
I wonder how far people travel in Norway compared to the United States.
Yeah.
You notice
And
Norwegians
their
are leading.
gasoline is like 3 times the
All right, I'll
price
try not to
of
hold that
gallon
against
gas in the United States. Okay, then on Tuesday the 9th, I took the safety training called the Right to Know. And that was interesting. It was about personal and corporate electronic devices, how we use our phones, computers, laptops, our little county surface devices. It was very good training. I did that on Tuesday the 9th. Then the last meeting that I attended was the Public Health Three-Way Committee deal. Beth is on that with me. That was on Thursday the 11th. At the beginning of the meeting, I questioned an entry on the financial report, and this led to a conversation about various acronyms and abbreviations that, of course, newbie me, I don't know what those are. So they have decided to do a little work session, and Kaisa, the person in charge of this three-way public health committee, she is going to put together that for the members. Meeker County receives 31% of allocated state funds for COVID relief to the tune of a little over $35,000. A presentation was made on assessment and accreditation for this committee to do their work, how the data was collected. It's done every 5 years. The top three, I think Beth mentioned this, the top three concerns are mental health, obesity, and drugs and alcohol. There was a Meeker County COVID update. We're still at 34 deaths for the county. 59% of age 65 and over are done with vaccinations in Meeker County. You can now get a vaccination at either the hospital, family fair, or Walmart.
Well, not always, just when they have the vaccinations available.
Yeah,
They did
those
for a while,
were-
and I'm not sure they're
those were-
available right now.
3 sites that
Right.
had the potential to distribute when they have the shots available. Public Health was going to be going to First District and offer shots for them, which I thought was absolutely, I mean, good grief, why haven't we done that sooner? What if First District were to shut down like some of the meat processing plants in southern Minnesota when all of this started? It would be devastating. So they were going to First District, and then they were going to go to Sparbo companies next. They're trying to hit the food processing plants to keep them going. Public Health sends out word over KLFD, online sites, the pharmacies when they have extra doses available. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to be attending a local public health meeting, and I'm taking the Government 101, the AMC training tomorrow. That's my report. Anything else
I
that
have one,
anyone would like to mention at this time?
one question. Well, there's a vacancy on the Aquatic Invasive Species Committee. And generally, it's been spread out through the county. I've had someone approach me. There's already someone on this lake that's on the committee. Do we want more than one from one lake on the
Well, do
committee?
you have something in place about that, or?
I don't think so.
I would check. I think it's always, I mean, if nobody else volunteers, but I would make sure nobody else wants it first.
So I'll check on that and find out.
Are they trying to stack the deck?
Yeah, that's, is it your lake?
Yes, it is.
Well, then that's out of the question. What's the matter with you?
You're gonna hold that against me too, aren't you? Yeah,
Nice try, Paul.
Yeah,
they're not exactly beating down our door to get on, Julie.
I think sometimes people aren't aware. I don't know, but.
And I should add that the EDA position will be posted on the county website too.
It's active today.
Yeah, currently, yes.
Yeah.
All of our vacancies are currently posted.
At the end of our agenda, at the end of the day today, there are 4 different vacancies listed at the very end of our agenda, if you folks have that in front of you. And there are ways to go online, I guess, and submit an application for all of those.
Go to the Meeker County website, follow the arrows.
Okay. Is there anything else that needs to come before us before we close our session?
No.
Anything else?
There is not.
Otherwise, I am going to, at this point, close our session. And,
I believe
what
we
do I
need
need to do next, Andrew? Do we need to do something with technology
to,
or?
we do, but we need a motion first to enter into
I'll make a motion to close the session
per section 13D
for
05
section
subdivision.
Minnesota statute 13D.05 subdivision 3B, attorney-client privilege to discuss pending litigation.
I'll second that motion, Madam Chair.
We have a second. Any additional discussion to close our session? Hearing none. Corey, would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen.
Yes. Motion to close session has passed unanimously.
Okay, no, we just
Okay,
need
give me
5
just a
minutes to get
second.
the